Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video.
One more week later and their final plan was in motion. Harry and his friends appeared on the outskirts of Hogwarts with two guests. The castle was still in ruins, even though he saw some signs of repairs being done. They walked into the front doors where Harry knocked on the door. He was in disguise again. Tony and the guests had to wear ruined glasses to see the castle, but that was necessary. The caretaker, Filch, opened the door with his usual scowl. "Are you the one that made the appointment?" "That would be me," Harry confirmed with a smile. "It's good to see you again, Argus." He added, "Do I know you?" Filch asked. "You do, but I doubt you'd remember." Harry chuckled. "Have our guests arrived?" "Some," Filch said with a frown. "They are in the hall having lunch with the headmistress." "McGonagall?" Harry asked. "Yes," Filch said again. "Follow me," he then said, and led them the short distance to the doors of the Great Hall. They asked the Grangers to wait outside the door for the surprise. "Would you like to come with?" Harry asked on impulse. "We've got some gifts especially for you." "Me?" Filch asked. "Yes, you," Harry said. His friends all smirked, knowing the man's history and the reason for his permanent scowl. Filch shrugged and followed them in. Inside were gathered a big group of people around a large round table. All of them wore frowns and looks of suspicion. "Are you Mr. Odinson?" McGonagall asked as they walked to the gathering of people. Harry noted all of them had their wands out. A quick, subtle check with his magic, and Harry noted there were a couple of people hiding in the antechamber. They were probably backup. Hopefully the other guests were with them. "That would be me," Harry confirmed. "And me," Loki said. "We're brothers," he clarified at their look. "Though Harry here is the one who called this meeting. Your letter said something about the future of the wizarding world and protecting it from people like Voldemort," McGonagall asked. "Just one moment, please," Harry said. Before they could react, Harry waved his hand twice and added his own protections to the castle and its grounds. "My husband needed to secure the castle for all of our safety," Natasha said. "Any of you who feel uncomfortable with this arrangement may leave and we will not stop you. This really is just a precaution." "What did you do?" McGonagall asked. She had felt the magic leave the man. It was like 100 wizards of Albus power had recast the wards of Hogwarts. "And how the blazes did you do that?" Harry, Natasha asked. "It's about time that we told you all a little story." Harry began. "Let us all get comfortable first though, shall we?" He waved a hand and the chairs around the table were all replaced by recliners. Harry turned to Steve. "Will you please go get our last guests before we begin?" "Sure thing, Harry," Steve said as he casually walked back to the door. "Who is he going to go get?" younger Harry asked. "A couple of muggles we invited." Harry said, "It's necessary. Muggles can't see the castle." McGonagall informed him. "We're muggles," Natasha said, pointing between most of them excluding Wanda, Loki, and Hela. "No, you're not," Hermione argued. "You couldn't be here if you were." "It's a long story, but every one of my friends can see the magical world." Harry said. "Shall we have something to drink?" he asked. He had prepared some for the presentation part and knew how many people to serve, so he summoned the mugs of butterbeer in front of everyone there. "Butterbeer has always been a favorite of mine." "I'll have a fire whiskey if you don't mind," Loki said. "The strong stuff." Harry obliged and summoned his. It was all part of the act. Steve had by now reached the doors and waited for everyone to be ready before he returned with Mr. and Mrs. Granger in tow. "Mum, Dad," Hermione exclaimed and ran to her parents. "Why are you here? How are you here?" She couldn't help the last question. Why are you wearing glasses? It was in her nature. "Mr. Odinson gave us these so that we may see magic," Hermione's father said. "He's also the one who gave us our memories back. So you better listen to every word he says, little lady." Her mother added in a stern voice. "Hey there, Mr. and Mrs. Granger." Harry said, "Take a seat, we're just about to begin." "Why are you here?" McGonagall insisted after she had watched Mrs. Weasley warn Ron not to drink the butterbeer even as the Grangers sat down and took sips themselves. Everyone was on edge but the new arrivals. "Could you ask your people to come in?" Harry asked. "I don't like the feeling of people watching me when I can't see them." "How did you?" McGonagall asked, but stopped herself. When the people refused to come in, Harry charmed the wall to the antechamber invisible from both sides. He waved at them with a grin. Frowning, the Aurors exited the room, but they all had their wands trained on the strangers. "Okay," Harry said before a look of confusion crossed his face. "Where do I start this again?" he asked. "Probably a good idea to give the gifts first," Tony suggested. "Otherwise you'll have to tell the whole story all over again." "Makes sense," Harry said, standing up. The Aurors kept their wands trained on him as he moved. He looked at George and asked, "What would you give to spend time with your brother again, even just an hour?" George answered instantly, even as people tried to stop him. "I'd give everything I own." Harry nodded and stuck his hand into his storage and floated out the energy cocoon that contained Fred. There were gasps, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley looked like they were about to attack the man for stealing their son's body from his grave, until Harry removed a disc and enervated the boy. "What? Where am I?" he asked as Harry allowed him onto the ground. "You're at Hogwarts," Harry said. "It's been 2 weeks since we rescued you." "Rescued?" Fred asked before he was bowled over by his brother. "George," George yelled as he hugged his sibling. Even as he felt for a familiar gash he knew his brother had on his back from when they had had an accident. "I'm not George, you're George," Fred said, confirming their security phrase. Twins know their siblings. They were soon engulfed in a crushing hug from their mother, who broke down in tears and soon needed to be told to stop before she killed Fred all over again. She didn't laugh at his joke, but relaxed a little before she started looking him over to make sure he really was okay. "It's really him?" George asked while he gave his twin space so their mother could mother him. He looked up at Harry with gratefulness but some confusion. "How? Magic," Harry said with a smirk, "and don't worry about the cost, you can pay me next time," he said with a wink. Then he looked at the rest. He cancelled his glamours to more shocked exclamations. "Let me introduce myself again. Hi, my name is Harry James Potter Odinson. I'm 39 years old, and from your perspective, I'm a time traveler." There was the sound of a body hitting the floor as Hermione, who had been standing by her parents protectively, passed out. "She knows the rules of time travel," Tony said with a smirk as he held out a hand to Natasha, who dropped a bill in it. "You should have believed me," he shrugged. "What the blazes is going on?" McGonagall insisted. "I demand answers from you, Potter." "What?" both Harrys asked at the same time. "I thought you'd be happy," the older Harry continued. McGonagall didn't know what to think. He was obviously a loon, a powerful loon, but definitely around the bend. Then he performed a miracle by placing wards more powerful than Hogwarts had likely ever seen in an instant, and it didn't end there. He'd brought someone back from the dead. She would not be denied. "You had better start explaining yourself," she said dangerously. "Mind if we just get our other guests out?" Harry asked. He stuck his hand in storage and pulled our Amelia Bones and Rufus Scrimgeour, who he also enervated. "Auntie," Susan yelled. "Susan, is that you? You look so much older. Where was I? The last thing I remember was Voldemort attacking me with a killing curse," Amelia said as she hugged her niece. She had believed she'd never see her again. She really thought she had died. "Sorry for the delay, Susan." "Amelia, we had to protect the timeline," Harry apologized. "What is going on?" Scrimgeour asked. He saw the Aurors and walked to them. "I'm going to need some answers." "Mr. Scrimgeour," one of the men started. "That's Minister Scrimgeour to you," the man insisted. "Not anymore, sir. You've been missing for a year. We thought you were dead." Another man said, "I saw the bloody body myself." Yet another Auror insisted. "I remember being attacked, but nothing after that." "What the hell is going on?" Scrimgeour asked. "That's a question I think we'd all like answered," a new voice said. Harry had taken out the healed form of Severus Snape. "Wait your turn, Snape," Harry said with a wink. Snape actually decided to hold his tongue but moved away from the man who had brought him to wakefulness. Next, Remus Lupin and Nymphadora Tonks joined the growing group of seemingly resurrected people. Next, Ted Tonks was brought out. Tonks and Remus had been asking questions, but Harry refused to repeat himself over and over again. When Ted joined the group, his daughter broke down in tears and hugged her father with all her might, while Remus stood off to the side and smiled, a look of pride on his face as he watched the older Harry bring so much joy to so many people. It was a miracle, and he would not spoil it for anyone by interfering. Harry had invited Andromeda, Nymphadora's mother, and their son, but understood why they were not there. To everyone's amazement, except for those who already knew. Harry next produced Dumbledore himself. It had taken quite a bit of power, but Harry had been able to remove the curse and fix the 116-year-old man up. "Albus," Minerva exclaimed as she sat down hard, not having the strength to stand. Most people had stopped talking and just stared. Albus looked at the people assembled. He noticed the older and younger Harry as well and saw the people he didn't know. Then he answered, "I believe I am me, yes. Though I doubt my own eyes, since I seem to be seeing double." "Sorry about the wait," Harry said. "Time travel." Albus nodded with a look of interest. "You are being a little light on the details there, Harry." "Not fun, is it?" both Harrys said. The younger Harry looked a little angrier though. "Indeed," Dumbledore said. He understood how infuriating it could be to be given half answers, but he had done all he could to set things up for young Harry to succeed. Next, Harry started bringing out all the other people he had saved. He hadn't gotten them all, but he'd gotten damn close. His team had been working overtime pointing out people who were about to fall, and he had done his thing. The only people he didn't save were the Death Eaters and their allies. These people he left in suspension so that they could later be returned to their families. There was still much to discuss. Harry made no further move to continue pulling out people. Remus had been hoping as well, but his heart sank when Harry stopped. Tonks noticed and went to her husband. She'd already inquired after her baby boy and would be leaving immediately after they were done to go hold him again. Remus' face held a sad kind of acceptance. When Harry noticed, he walked up to Remus and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, Remus, I got him too, but I can't bring him out yet," he said, looking around at the Aurors and people who didn't know Sirius was innocent. Suddenly Remus' eyes held the hope again and Harry couldn't resist the hug the werewolf gave him. "Thank you," Remus whispered in a broken voice. "Thank you," he repeated. This became the norm as Harry suddenly became the recipient of more and more hugs of gratitude. Ginny, on the other hand, was quiet. She stood off to the side with a look of sadness on her face. She had remembered the woman saying Harry was her husband. It took a while for everyone to settle down. When they were all settled, Harry stood up again. "So, I'm guessing you're less inclined to attack me now?" he asked. There were no more wands trained on him and Hermione had been brought back around. "You're breaking the rules." Hermione insisted. "You're not allowed to change the past, unless you are setting things right," Tony insisted. Harry used a couple of loopholes to do what he did and preserve the timeline. But then how Hermione started before her brilliant mind caught up. Then she got up and went to stand in front of the younger Harry. "You can't take him," she insisted. Harry smiled sadly at her. "Wouldn't that be breaking the rules, Hermione?" he asked. "But you can't," she insisted as tears started rolling down her cheeks. "He doesn't deserve it, he's had enough." "What is she talking about?" Ron, who had been mostly silent, asked. When Hermione started crying on their best friend's shoulder, he knew that something was wrong. "It's time for my story," Harry said. This was the hard part, so he had opted to cheat. He took out his pensive tablet. "This is a pensive. A new one which one of my friends created." His other friends all took out their pensives as well. "In them, I have placed the memories of the important events that would have happened to this world if I hadn't stepped in. I will ask all of you who wish to know what happened to enter the pensives and watch the memories. I warn you, these are not happy memories." His friends ranged around the table, and as one they all placed the pensives tablets down so that any who wished could enter the memory. There wasn't one person who didn't enter except for the Aurors, who were ordered by both Amelia and Rufus to stand guard while everyone was busy. They didn't look happy but agreed. Harry noticed Filch standing off in a corner though. "Didn't you want to see?" Harry asked. "Couldn't make a difference. I'm a glorified janitor." He said sourly. "Let's fix that then, shall we?" Harry smirked. The people would be busy for a while after all. Harry walked to the man and took him aside and started whispering with him. He presented him with a few gifts and soon the man was excitedly running out of the hall. Harry rejoined his friends and Harry called for Dobby, who he had forgotten to tell everyone about. "Oh well. Hey Dobby, would you mind asking the elves to prepare us something to eat? It's getting a bit late," Harry asked. Dobby looked between Harry and the younger Harry and smiled. "I will get the great and other great Harry Potter sirs and their friends something to eat." Then he disappeared to the kitchens. The food arrived shortly and everyone that was not in a pensive chowed down. It didn't take too much longer for the memories to end. There was a lot of crying going on as people saw the atrocities caused by the Death Eaters and Voldemort himself. The younger Harry looked up and asked with angry eyes, "So he made another one, and he's out there right now, planning to destroy the world?" "No," Harry said. When all the eyes were on him, Harry stuck his hand into storage and removed the still form of Voldemort. There were gasps all around and suddenly there were many wands pointed at Harry. Harry put Voldemort back in storage. "No, he's not out there, but if you don't accept your responsibility, he will be." There were many angry eyes now, but Hermione understood and she started crying again. Her poor friend had to go through so much. "Why don't you just kill him now?" Rufus asked. "The rules," Tony said. "It doesn't matter if Harry kills him. Now if the younger Harry doesn't go to a different reality to become who Harry becomes, your world suffers the same fate." Hermione just cried harder and suddenly hugged her Harry. "I'm so sorry," she said. The younger Harry looked at the smartest which he knew and he realized she knew what they were saying was the truth. He looked up at his apparent older self. "Is there no other way?" he asked, ignoring Hermione who was still inconsolable but keeping an arm around her. "I'm afraid not," Harry said sincerely. "On the bright side," Loki said, "you gain a loving family. And friends," Bruce said, "and techno-magic," Tony added, "and other new kinds of magic." Wanda added, "and a loving wife." Natasha added, hugging her Harry, "and a girlfriend." Tony added unnecessarily, "and a home." Hella said, "and in this world, there is no magical government and you can create and explore the limits of magic like never seen before." Harry said, "There are other planets filled with intelligent life and there are people with powers and skills you couldn't dream of." He finished. The younger Harry listened as so many of his dreams were brought up and things he didn't even know he wanted. So many things he could do and achieve with no limits. Even if it was at the cost of apparently not seeing his friends again for many years. But I need to leave everyone I love behind to do this. Younger Harry asked sadly. You need to do it to stop the destruction of this world, yes. Harry agreed, but I come back. Younger Harry asked, I can come back and I can stay here. He insisted, I don't think I'm allowed. Harry said, I wouldn't want to if I could. What? Molly Weasley asked, suddenly angry. She loved Harry like one of her own sons. It felt like a rejection. And poor Ginny. To see the man he becomes and know that he's already married. Oh, relax, Mrs. Weasley. Harry said, I didn't say you couldn't come with me. I want you all in my life. I just can't leave what I have gained behind. I have responsibilities and many more loved ones back home. So you want us to leave our lives for you? Mrs. Weasley asked. No, I don't want that, but I can offer it. The world I went to could use with more magical people in it. And I have enough money saved up so that I can offer anyone that goes with me anything they could hope to have. Even opportunities. Harry said, he's the richest man on the planet and owns a company that is protecting more than one planet. Tony added, the Magical Research and Development Department always needs more people and we've only got 3 magicals at this point. 3 magicals? Hermione asked. Hi, I'm Wanda Maximoff, one of the other magicals. Wanda said, I'm currently dating an artificial intelligence which Harry helped make sentient. He also saved me from becoming some sort of vessel for an ancient god of chaos. Hermione's head looked like it would explode, but she persisted, how can you run a company that does magical research with just the 3 of you? Actually, Wanda isn't even working for me yet. Harry said, she's only been studying magic for 3 years now and the other magical works mostly in my hospital. Almost 4, Wanda corrected. I've finished my charms, defense and transfiguration up until 7th year, but I'm working to become an enchanter like Harry. I'm also studying potions and runes. Jarvis, my boyfriend, is studying arithmancy and he's teaching me as he goes. You're having Potter teach you potions? Severus asked with disbelief. Actually, I finished my 7th year if you have to know. They fixed all the problems you caused thanks to being a horrible teacher when I joined the Aurors. Harry said with a bit of a smile on his face. No, I was the first potions master in our reality. Bruce said, I taught someone else who now teaches at Harry's Magic Academy. But you're just a muggle. Snape sneered again. No muggle can make potions. The best you can hope for is a soup with expensive ingredients. I've already cured some forms of cancer. Thank you very much, Master Snape. Bruce added with just a bit of heat and his eyes flashed green. Bruce finished his mastery in just 1 year and I wouldn't call him just anything. Harry warned, he could kick your ass no matter how much magic you have. I'd like to see him try. Snape smirked. Abruptly, Bruce stood up and started transforming. When he was done, he took 2 steps towards Snape and stopped nose to nose with him. When Hulk try you die, he growled out with a wicked smile. Hey there, big guy, Harry smiled. If you're going to turn him into paste, do it outside, please. Filch only just finished cleaning in here. Hulk had ignored the spells that had hit him. To all of them it looked like he was immune, but Dumbledore had noted Harry's finger twitch and smiled softly, knowing he had shielded him. He had misunderstood. If the Hulk was hurt, he'd not go down. He'd attack. Hulk soon took a step away and transformed back when Snape just stared at the giant man in shock. With a bit of fear on his face. Guys, this is Dr. Bruce Banner. He's a scientist and has been using science and scientific gadgets to figure out how to make potions more efficient and powerful, while taking away negative side effects. Harry said, he can also transform into a giant green rage monster if you piss him off. Tony added. Harry helped him and the big guy figure out they could talk. The transformations are voluntary now. Harry helped Tony figure out how to make technology work around magic as well, which makes using an electron microscope and spectrometers so much simpler. Bruce added, Harry's also employed the smartest people on the planet and they all work with her for him. Natasha added, he also saved the lives of half the universe. Hella added, literally. Loki added, that wasn't a figure of speech. When everyone stared at him in shock, he smirked and continued, he was also adopted by my father Odin Borson, All-Father of Asgard, King of the Gods. The twins suddenly went still, then both of them asked in one voice, and you are? Loki Odinson, God of Mischief, at your service. He smiled at them. The twins fell off their seats as they scrambled to run to Loki's side. Please teach us, they begged. Maybe you should ask my brother, Loki suggested. After all, he did win the prank war we had going. Both twins slowly turned to Harry, who smirked, learned from the best, didn't I? The twins mock fainted and just lay on the ground. One of them asked Fred. Yes, George, the other answered. Do you know how long it will take to pack? No idea, George, but I think we can do it in a few hours if we have to. Do you think they'll wait? We should probably ask them how long they are staying first, don't you think? The twins finally got up and asked together, how long do we have? Boys, Mrs. Weasley objected. You know Mrs. Weasley. Harry said, I do have a cafeteria that needs people to cook for my army. And I only have so many who can use healing magic in my hospital. Army? Hospital? Molly asked. And places for every one of your family. Harry confirmed. We need a ward specialist, a dragon handler, magical researchers, and people with experience with enchanting mundane items. We even have the beginning of a couple of Quidditch teams that could really do with a coach. Not to mention the magical liquor. The living island of magic and a whole universe of magical plants and undiscovered potions ingredients. He turned to Snape. We could really use someone with your experience. You were a crap professor, but I know you were a prodigy with potions. Anyone working for me has limitless funds at their disposal if they can prove the need. Harry tried. He didn't like the man, but he could sure use him. Not to mention that I can give you front row seats to Voldemort's punishment and a new start in a world that doesn't know who you are. Imagine the respect you can earn for yourself and the conversation of a whole department of potions masters. Loki added. He turned to Harry. I hear Gemma Simmons is nearing her mastery. That makes it, 3 for now? There's an advanced class that's reaching 7th year level soon as I recall. Harry said, how long did it take them to get to that level again? Tony asked, knowing the answer. I think about 3 years. Harry said, but to be fair, they also have work to do during the day and they make most of the nutrition potions we send to third world countries for support. I thought you'd have a machine to make those by now. Tony asked Bruce. Not yet, but I do have a couple that produce primers and some of the simpler stuff so that I don't have to waste the students' time making those for me anymore. Bruce said. All around the table there were faces filled with stunned disbelief. The things mentioned were simply that, beyond belief. Minerva couldn't be prouder though. Her lion had gone on to change an entire world for the better and saved so many lives. This is what magic was supposed to be. She caught Dumbledore's eye and knew what he was thinking. Instantly she stood up. I'm going with you, she said before Dumbledore could. Sorry Albus, but you'll have to stay here and watch the children go off to be useless in the ministry. You're the head mistress, Albus said with a smile. I've been dead for a year. I'm almost certain I'm not on the payroll anymore. Just then Filch ran into the room and approached Harry with 3 wands in his hand. Empty, he said simply. Ask Albus to give you a couple, Harry suggested. Filch walked over to Albus and placed the wands on the table. Make him repair for now, I'm still fixing things, he said. Albus looked at Harry. What is this? He asked, pointing to the wands. I enchanted them to store spells of one kind, Harry said. Cast 20 reparo spells into each of them and stand back while Filch uses them to fix the castle. He smiled. You didn't, Hermione asked with wonder. You can give magic to a squib now, any non-magical actually. Harry said. Filch flinched at the statement but then looked back to Albus, waiting. He'd wanted to cast spells his whole life. With this he finally felt like a wizard. Well, he asked. Albus reached for where he normally kept his wand, but then frowned. I don't have a wand, he said. Here, Harry said, tossing him a ring. Put that on a finger and touch it to the wands while casting the spell. Albus looked at the ring. It looked like nothing special. He tried it on anyway and felt a strange sensation as the ring flashed. He pointed with his finger and tried channeling a repair spell. The ring flashed but nothing else happened. Then he took the wand in hand and channeled the spell again. To his astonishment, he could feel the spell enter the wand. How is this possible? One of my friends, Rocket, made this as his mastery rune project. Harry smiled. He wanted to make one rune scheme that takes the intent from the wearer to allow normal people without magic to use magic items. I found out afterward it works just as well as a focus with contact if you already have magic. I meant, how does the wand store the magic? I haven't heard of a spell or enchantment like that. Albus clarified. It's a new enchantment I came up with. Nifty, isn't it? Harry asked. Albus nodded, impressed, and cast the spell into the wand again over and over, quicker and quicker, until the wand flashed, indicating it was full. The other ones too, Filch said in frustration at the old man taking his time. Albus complied and filled up the spells until they both flashed. Filch took them back and hurried out of the hall again. You've done so much, Albus said, and this ring. I can't even see the runes. Trade secret, I'm afraid, Tony said. Harry's company owns the trademark. He'd tell you, but then he'd be in breach of contract. What about our world? Scrimgeour objected. If you all leave, who will be here when the Death Eaters start up again? Oh right, Harry said, looking sheepish. You have to excuse Harry, Natasha said. He gets so caught up in his displays that he forgets little things like that. This is no little thing, Scrimgeour objected. Yeah, sorry, Harry said. We already gathered up all the Death Eaters and got them to confess everything under Veritaserum. They signed confessions or faced the wrath of Hela. Hela, Dumbledore asked. My sister, Harry said, pointing at Hela, the goddess of death. It is a pleasure to meet so many of Harry's friends and allies. His subjects will be sad that they couldn't have been here. Hela said. Zero was quite upset that Harry wouldn't uproot her tree to bring her along. his subject's tree. McGonagall asked. Zira is my girlfriend and she is a nymph like the ones from legend. Harry explained. They have an allure like the Vila do here, but they are bound to trees and the land. Harry saved her people from slavery and they decided he was their king. Natasha explained. For Harry to give the Grove everything they needed, he had to take one as a consort, so we call her his girlfriend and allowed her into both our hearts. She's just a bit shy of 300 years old, but looks about 25, considering they could potentially live for thousands of years. A lot like Hela and Loki. I'm almost 3,000 myself and Loki is, as I recall, around 1,500. Hela asked Loki. Just a couple hundred short of our oldest brother Thor. Loki agreed. Enough of this nonsense, Scrimgeour interrupted. We need to take the Death Eaters into custody. I saw what they did to our world in your future. We cannot wait to ensure they are no longer a threat. We can hand them over as soon as we have a magical oath that they can't buy their freedoms again. Many of them are from old pureblood families and Harry started. That will not save them this time, Scrimgeour said with determination. Then get who is in charge over here so we can take their oath. Harry said easily. We will not allow one of them out of our sight without that, otherwise. We take them with us and see justice done ourselves. This is non-negotiable. The younger Harry couldn't look at his older self and not be impressed. Everything he mentioned just made him want to jump into his life, but he knew there would be hard times and close calls, considering his luck. When Scrimgeour looked at the older one with anger, but he just blinked uncaringly like this man couldn't touch him, he knew his choice had been made. Ginny and he had spent so much time apart and he had missed her dearly, but they were just in the beginning of something. The choice was not a difficult one. Family, magic, friendship, companionship, saving people using means that were not allowed here. Dreams offered to him on a silver platter covered in pain and hardships that he would face gladly for half of what the man before him had. He made eye contact with his older self and nodded slightly. Harry looked at his younger self and remembered who he had been before it all went to shit. He opened his mind to Harry and a connection formed easily. Are you sure? He asked mentally, sending his younger self glimpses of what was to come. The younger Harry could see many memories flashing before his eyes until one stayed there. It was a moment he shared with his wife when he was so angry that he couldn't stand it, but she was there, calming him and bringing him back from the edge of madness. Then his heart and mind, filled with a love he had never known, couldn't conceive of experiencing himself. When the older Harry broke the connection, he didn't want it to stop. But it was over. He wanted to feel that himself, and his resolve solidified. I'll do it, he said aloud to his older counterpart. Harry didn't know it, but in that moment he had forged a connection for himself. A space reserved for one woman and one woman alone. It was what death had meant. When he said that Harry hadn't really chosen her. Good man, Harry said with a sad smile. We'll set you up and sort you out as soon as you are ready. We've got a couple of days while we confirm we have everything you'll need. How do you know what he will need? Ron asked. Don't be stupid, Ronald. Hermione said angrily. He's obviously been through it already, hasn't he? But I mean, something could happen different. Ron defended himself. It really couldn't. Harry said, that's the reason we had to wait for the prophecy to be fulfilled. We had to ensure that everything happened as it should. And where will I learn the skills I will need? Harry asked, thinking the older Harry must have learned them somewhere. I'll be wiping your memory of today and implanting my memories of events up to the point where I arrived in the other world, which will impart my skills and abilities to you to a degree. Harry said, then there's also a few other things we need to give you. But you will have all you need, he assured him. On the bright side, Bruce said kindly, when you reach this point you will find out that you might not have actually suffered all that much, that you were just the next iteration in a series of events that made you who you needed to be. The older Harry looked at him and frowned. So I might not have gone through all that. Oh, I'm sure you did at some point, Tony added. Both Harrys put their hands to their heads, but only the older one said, I think I need a drink. Time travel talk always gives me a headache. It's good to know I'll always be smarter than you, Hermione said to the younger Harry with a wry smile. Just then Dobby popped back in. He had been given access to backup plan and had poured Harry a stiff drink. Here you goes, he said with an easy smile. Harry Potter must not be having a headache. He must gives Harry Potter good strong memories. Dobby, the younger Harry and his two friends exclaimed. Must Dobby gets more drinks? Dobby asked the older Harry. Bring out some of the rum and fire whiskey, please, Harry asked him. Dobby disappeared and reappeared with the drinks. The rum is an invention of Harry's company. It gives a feeling of acceptance and welcome. The fire whiskey is what they were able to figure out from the original. Natasha informed them. Most of the older people got a fire whiskey, but Albus and Minerva both tried the rum. This is marvelous, Minerva exclaimed as a gentle wind blew on her face. Quite so, Albus enthused. You made this, he asked Harry. I enchanted it, Harry said. Bruce and Tony worked out the magical ingredients and processes to produce it. Harry supplies the magic, we provide the brains, Tony boasted. He's also made 2 other drinks, Loki said, but one is an ale, meant for celebrations, and the other would not do in this cold castle as it is meant to cool you down, while it freshens you after a hard day of labor or fighting. This fire whiskey is even better than what we have here, Mr. Weasley exclaimed. We looked into distillation methods after we got the process for the original, then we upgraded our process to improve the quality, Tony said. This is one of our products meant for only those in the know. Since it is fully enchanted, we've got a version that is meant for the public that is less enchanted. We still have waiting lists for the stuff and we're making a pretty penny. You guys really should talk to Tony about business. He's a marketing genius. Harry told the twins, then he said in a stage whisper, he's a billionaire, you know. Did he say billionaire, Fred? Fred asked George. I believe he did, George. George confirmed. Harry is still richer. Tony scoffed. Demand has never been higher since we started producing power and communication systems that nobody can emulate or even begin to compare with. I never cared about the money until I saw how much good it was doing. Harry said, I keep throwing money into projects and they keep on making more money than I can invest. Story of your life, isn't it? Fred asked. Everything you do just keeps on getting more and more attention. At least he has the public on his side this time, Natasha said, not to mention the uproar when people found out Harry was married. Loki laughed. He was the most eligible bachelor in Asgard and on Earth. At that statement, Ginny broke down in sobs and ran from the hall. I didn't mean to hurt her feelings. He apologized. He got up and said, let me go see if I can help. No, Harry interrupted, getting up himself. I think I owe her an explanation. Harry walked out of the hall and cast a spell to find the girl. He found her on her way to the astronomy tower. Why was it always the astronomy tower? Harry activated his flight and followed her quickly. When he caught up, he levitated her up and took her the rest of the way but out a window so he could avoid the many staircases. When Ginny was lifted from her feet, she yelped in surprise but soon saw the older Harry was with her. When they landed, Harry walked to the edge and looked out over his much-beloved first home. He was silent, though, and allowed her to gather her thoughts as she cried. It took her quite a few minutes. But she had questions. She finally joined him at the edge and asked, why did you have to be married? Harry looked slightly down at her and then away again. One of my friends asked me the same question when I brought Natasha to Asgard. She's a beautiful woman and a warrior and thought I disliked her or spurned her attention on purpose. I told her our story to teach her about what it means to really love someone. But then why? Ginny begged. Our love was real, but it wasn't meant to last. Ginny, Harry said, I know it doesn't feel like it to you, but you have to remember that I mourned you. For years, you saw the memories, you know what I went through. Ginny nodded. While she understood in her head, she couldn't understand it in her heart. What am I supposed to do now? She asked. I don't know. Harry said honestly. Spending more time with the younger me will likely only make separating hurt more, but not spending time together will only lead to regret. Later, can't you just, she started. There is no way for me to change my personal past without creating problems. Harry interrupted. If there was a way, I don't know that I'd do it either. I'm happier than I can ever recall being with my friends and family. There's no way I'd jeopardize that. Even for me. Ginny asked. Don't be silly, a new voice said as Natasha became visible. Harry isn't doing this for me. He's doing it so that he can guarantee he can save you and this world. Hey Nat, Harry said, taking the woman in one of his arms as she explained to Ginny. From the moment he came to our world, he's been working to fix yours. Natasha continued. You cannot imagine the amount of stress he's had to endure for that. I'm sorry, Ginny said, looking down. I know he's not done anything wrong and I'm not complaining that he brought Fred back, but that doesn't make it easier. At least I didn't lose you and your family this time. Harry said, I'm really hoping you all decide to join me. With the twins going, you couldn't keep Mum away. Ginny laughed self-deprecatingly. If you really could offer better jobs for Bill and Charlie where Mum can see them all the time, she'll drag them there herself if she has to. I'm also thinking of offering the Vila a place on my island. I know they are treated like lesser beings in this world. Harry said, everyone on Harry's island has the same rights. Natasha explained. And most of the heroes of our world tend to end up on the island for drinks at some point. Heroes? Ginny asked. The world I went to have superheroes. Harry said with wonder in his voice. They have supervillains too, but we put them in their place whenever they show up. Harry is considered one of our strongest, if not the strongest. Natasha added, nah, I'm nothing compared to some of the people there. Harry scoffed. He still does that then? Ginny asked. Feeling a bit better, knowing he was still the same Harry, even if he was older. Yeah. Natasha agreed. I wouldn't change him though. I can agree to that. Ginny said, shall we go back down before they send a search party? Harry asked. In answer, Natasha lifted up, waiting for Harry to follow. Harry winked at her and this time he picked Ginny up bridal style and they flew out the window. How are you doing this? Ginny asked. And how is she flying too? I thought she was a muggle. Harry was able to make magic items that allow normal people to do many things. Natasha said as she went invisible and reappeared, "You are by no means normal." Harry scoffed. He looked at Ginny and whispered in a stage whisper, "Natasha is a spy, one of the best there is." "Really?" Ginny asked. "This world seems like it might be fun. You have no idea," Harry said with a grin as they approached the door to the Great Hall again. Harry landed them just inside the door and put Ginny down. "Awry?" the voice of Hagrid asked. "Hagrid," Harry answered and ran up to the large man, enlarging himself as he went. He wasn't stronger in this form like Ant-Man was, but he took care of that by increasing his mass and durability. When he met the man, he hugged him with a lot of strength and lifted the man, who was the same size as him now, up. "It's great to see you again. Blimey awry," Hagrid groaned. "You have grown up good and strong," he said, hugging Harry back and still hurting Harry through his enhanced durability. "Damn it, Hagrid, just how strong are you?" Harry said as he pulled away from the man, still smiling but rubbing his aching ribs as he became his normal size. "Strong as an ox and twice as big, I reckon," Hagrid enthused with a smile. Then he looked at Harry and asked, "What's this I hear about you avaying an island with all kinds of creatures?" "I'm afraid I can't tell you too much right now, since we've got company, but I do recall us having some things that even you couldn't handle." Harry smirked. "Nonsense," Hagrid scoffed. "There's not a creature alive that'll want to hurt you if you treat him right." "Then you've never met a bilgesnipe," Loki added. "Those will try to eat you just because you're not made of dirt or ice." "What's the?" Hagrid asked. "A large carnivorous beast that lives on a planet covered in ice," Loki said with a smile. "It's the home of the ice giants." "Ice giants? Never heard of such a thing," Hagrid said, the twinkle of interest in his eyes. "What are they like?" he asked as Loki walked off with him, probably planning to tell him of his own heritage. Hermione walked up to Harry and asked, "How much space do you have? Do you think you can make room for my family?" Harry smiled. "In another life you helped me create a pocket dimension in a trunk. We can make as much space as you can hope for, but first I must speak to your parents." But Hermione started. "I'm no longer a boy, Hermione. I'll speak to your parents first." Harry interrupted loudly before whispering, "But just between us, I've already planned for all of you to come with me." He winked at her. She smiled at him but realized he was putting on a face, so she controlled her features with some effort and sighed. "Okay." Harry then went to talk to Mr. and Mrs. Granger. "It seems your daughter has it in her head to come with us when we leave." Mr. Granger nodded. "Yes, with all of the Weasleys making plans, how could she not? Not that all of the things you mentioned had no influence on her decision," Mrs. Granger added with a raised eyebrow. "To be completely honest," Harry said, "I could use someone of her intellect at my company. I would be willing to transport or purchase any equipment you might need to come with her and set you up with a practice anywhere in the world." Mr. Granger looked at Harry like he was weighing the man in his mind. "Why are you offering this?" "Because Hermione is a dear friend, and I'd love to have her around again," Harry said. "You have to understand, I haven't seen her for more than half of my life, but all of my friends have been on my mind every day since before I went away." "We saw the memories, Harry," Mrs. Granger said with a sad look. "We know how much you loved her, but you aren't the person she remembers. You'll likely never be able to connect the way you used to again." "I think you're underestimating how smart your daughter is," Harry said, "and overestimating Harry's maturity," Natasha said as she appeared by his side. "He's still just a kid who wants to play with magic and hang out with his friends, bragging about his latest achievements. The fact of the matter is, if you wanted to retire, Harry could set you up quite nicely, no strings attached, but he'll probably try to convince you to come work for him and let him invent magical means for you to do your job more easily." "She isn't wrong," Harry said. "I love spreading magic and making things that make people's lives easier. I don't think we would be able to deny her the opportunity, but we can't make her think she's getting her way so easily either," Mr. Granger said. Mrs. Granger nodded along. "We'll tell her we're thinking about it," she agreed. "Do you know how long we have?" "A couple of days at most," Harry said. "We've got almost everything set up. We just need to get the ritual to send my younger self on, and then we'll go back by other means." "Could we come back if things don't work out?" Mr. Granger asked. "I'm afraid not," Harry said. "It's a one-way trip back. Coming to this time again could only cause problems." "Maybe we really should think about it," Mr. Granger said. "Whatever you decide, I know you'll do what you think is best for yourselves and Hermione." Harry agreed. Then he went to rejoin his friends who were still talking animatedly to the Weasleys. Fred and George instantly went to him. "How did you fly like that?" they asked. "Magic," Harry answered. "What kind, though?" one of them insisted. "Because we can't even figure out where you would start to do it without a broom," the other added. "Trade secret, I'm afraid." Harry smirked. "I am an enchanter, you know. I can't go around telling people how I do what I do." "But you're going to teach me, right?" Wanda asked. "I'll be teaching you to the point where you can do certain things," Harry corrected, "It's the job of the enchanter to find their own way once they have the principles down." Harry isn't wrong. Arthur said, "I tend to do things my own way when I play with Muggle contraptions, and we'll love having you in our R&D department." Tony said, "There's so much on the books it isn't even funny. What are you thinking of starting him on?" Harry asked. "I was thinking he could take his family on a tour of some of our allies' planets after we correct his misinterpretations of how technology works," Tony said before turning to Arthur. No offense meant. "Arthur, but Harry told me some of your stories. You need a firm understanding of the basics of electricity before we can have you work on any of our delicate equipment." Arthur knew better than to argue that point but had a question of his own. "What about our home? We've built so many memories there, we can't just abandon it." Harry smirked and reached into storage, pulling out the snow globe. "I made this copy last year before the attack," he said. "It should have everything you had, except for magical items or ingredients." "You copied the burrow?" Fred asked as he took the globe from Harry's hand. "Is this real?" George added, looking into the perfect replica of their family home from before it was attacked. It had never been the same since. Harry would have replied, but he was currently struggling to breathe because Molly was trying to hug him to death. He tapped her on the back and wheezed out air before she let go of him. "You sweet boy. You even remembered to save our home," she exclaimed. Then she turned around and hugged the younger Harry. "You are just wonderful." "Hey, kill him, not me," the younger Harry wheezed out. Harry remembered that time of his life. Even as he fought for breath, he enjoyed every moment of the woman's attention. She was his first maternal figure after all. Well, her and McGonagall. She had always seemed more like a strict but beloved grandmother, though. It was around that time that more guests arrived. Harry didn't care who saw him at this point. They had diverted the timeline and done so safely. All that still needed to happen was for them to send his younger self along, and then he'd finally be able to rest like never before. What he didn't expect was to feel a curse heading his way from one of the current minister's personal protection detail. He instantly went out of phase, but he needn't have worried. 10 people had jumped in front of him. Fortunately, with Steve at the head, blocking the attack with his shield. He had activated an enchantment that outfitted him in his Captain America outfit and stood firm in a battle stance. "What is the meaning of this?" McGonagall exclaimed at the man. The minister had backed away, apparently unaware that his men had other priorities. The 4 men remained silent as they all started firing at the people who now protected Harry. Tony had a moment to don his armor and started stalking toward the men, ignoring the spell fire. As the IM shielding easily blocked the worst of the damage and he had barely lost any nanites. "Stand down or be put down," his mechanical voice said as his repulsors charged up to fire. "They're unspeakables, Harry," Hermione shouted out to the older Harry, the obvious target. They must have heard about his violation of the rules of time travel. One of the men suddenly dropped like he had been stunned, but nobody saw how it had happened. The man with the shield was advancing on one of the men, as the other 2 kept firing at the speaking iron golem with glowing hands. The glow soon turned into a burst of energy, which one of them blocked with a shield, but his fellow was sent flying and hit a wall hard. He'd not be getting up quickly. The man who was being stalked by the man with the shield also fell down suddenly, for no reason that anyone could see. The last man standing turned to try and flee. But the gathered friends and family of Harry Potter had closed ranks and the man was surrounded. Suddenly he stopped moving and then lifted up. Harry was sitting by the table drinking some conjured coffee while directing the petrified man's movement through the air with his other hand. "Let's see what an unspeakable has to say, shall we?" Harry said casually. "He can't, Harry," Hermione said. "Unspeakables are under magical oath to never reveal anything." "Is that right?" Harry asked. Putting his coffee down, he stood up and walked to the man. "So you are under magical oath not to speak, eh? I've been wanting to test a theory for a while now." Harry cast a strong finito at the man, but he remained looking the same. "Must be polyjuice," he murmured to himself. Bruce heard him anyway and opened an inside pocket and removed a piece of cloth which he put down on the table and started unrolling. It was impossibly large suddenly, for the tiny piece of cloth. And as it unrolled, it revealed lines and lines of potions in vials. They were all clearly marked and labeled. Bruce looked around for a bit until he found 2 vials. He took an empty vial from near the beginning and poured a bit from one vial in and then just one drop from another. Snape had walked up to inspect the collection and his eyebrows rose and rose the further he went. When he noticed the 2 vials the man had used to create what he had, he frowned for a moment until he realized what he had made. He suddenly looked at the other potions master with a look of respect. "Well done," he complimented. "I doubt I'd have thought of that on my own, but how are the potions kept in their prime state?" he asked. Harry enchanted a stasis field in each pocket. "I can make almost any potion quickly with what I have here," Bruce said as he fished out a syringe and sucked the concoction into it. Then he took out another vial and filled the rest of the syringe with the liquid it contained. When he was done, he walked to the man, stuck the needle in his thigh and depressed the plunger. Thanks, Bruce, Harry said, never looking away from the man. What was that? Snape asked. He'd never seen a potion administered that way. He knew of medical science, of course, but didn't think what he just saw should be possible. Our other potions master is in charge of developing new ways of administering potions, Bruce said. 10 times the solution mixed with this acid-based potion will allow for injection. We've got another one for alkaline-based potions. Ingenious, Snape said with just a slight bit of envy in his voice. It was at that point that the neutralizer Bruce had made on the fly started acting. 10 seconds later, a new face was being held in place by Harry and his power. Does anyone know who this is? Harry asked. I don't know his name, but he is definitely an unspeakable. Amelia said. Wonderful. Harry cheered. Let's begin our experiment. Shall we? Harry pulled forth his power and surrounded the man with it. It started seeping into the man's body at Harry's direction, then his mind, and finally his magical core. Harry waited until he knew the man was completely saturated in his power, not knowing that he had begun to give off waves of pure magical energy as the assembled people watched and witnessed his power in action for the first time. Harry then started pulling his power back and focused on the man's magical core as he went. He felt its substance and its channels as it spread throughout the man's body and started pulling at it, dislodging it from where it was embedded in the man's very being. If Harry hadn't immobilized him, he would have screamed. As it was, his eyes just bulged. It was the only indicator that he was in pain. Harry, Dumbledore implored, knowing the man was in pain. You must stop. I'm not going to kill him, Harry said easily. I just want some answers. I'm almost done. But you're torturing the man. Dumbledore tried again. Steve, bless his heart, stepped forward. Harry would never needlessly hurt someone. He's not a monster. If he says this is necessary, I trust him. The looks on the rest of his friends' faces were showing their trust in him. Not one trace of doubt was seen. Before Dumbledore could argue once again, it was over. See, Harry said as he let the man go. He dropped to the floor, breathing hard. Isn't that better? You can talk now. What have you done to me? The man asked as he looked around at what seemed to be the ruins of Hogwarts. I removed your magical core. Harry said, you're a muggle now. What? Came the collective exclamation from the assembled people. I can put it back, Harry said with a smirk, if he gives us answers, which he now can, since without magic you can't be bound by magical oath. He had been wondering why, when he tied his storage to his magical core. It had felt so familiar. That's when he recalled the enchantment cluster he had made for Melinda May's skyline. It had felt familiar because it functioned exactly the same way, even if this was infinitely more complicated. With this bit of knowledge, the magical core he was currently inspecting with his magic and a bit of Aesir magic, he could likely duplicate a magical core now, but it would take some work and a lot of research. I'll handle the questioning. Natasha, who had been invisible as she took down 2 of the assailants, said as she appeared at Harry's side, where she had been since the last man went down. She was now in her widow gear with the combat glove in prominent display. She took the man by the collar of his shirt and walked off to a corner, followed closely by the other heroes, dragging him along as Bruce fished out some Veritaserum. They'd been through this enough that Harry knew to send a dictation quill and some paper after them. With a negligent wave of his hand, Harry, Dumbledore said as he sat down next to Harry as he kept on inspecting the now visible core of the man being questioned. How did you do that? He asked. Harry looked up from his inspection and saw concern in the old man's eyes. I'm afraid I can't tell you, Harry said. Can't or won't? Dumbledore asked. Won't, Harry admitted. It has to do with what I've learned of enchantment. I can do what I did because I have a near limitless supply of magic and because I wanted to test a theory which turned out to be correct. He finished with a smile. He ignored the snort from the other side of the hall when Loki repeated, near limitless, he says, like it was a joke. Why do you look so happy? McGonagall, who was also interested, asked. Because now I don't have to worry about the Death Eaters, Harry said, just a bit vindictively. I'll be making them all muggles, Voldemort too. Harry was not disappointed to see a couple of predatory smiles in return. Albus started stroking his beard and sat back in contemplation before he reached into a pocket and offering something to Harry. Lemon drop? He asked. It turned out that the unspeakables were not as clean as people had wanted to believe, using the fact that they couldn't speak of it. Voldemort had corrupted the entire bunch of them and turned them into a sleeper cell of sorts. A last resort he could tap if he ever needed to. Knowing that his team had been unable to do much over the last while and trusting them to take care of themselves, Harry had simply stood back and waited as they snuck into the Department of Mysteries and started doing what they did best, uprooting terrorists. It didn't even take them very long. It turns out the Department of Mysteries functioned with a minimal staff of 20. That done, they went back to the apartment. Harry had finally found the ritual that had been used to send Harry to their world. It had to be performed during a full moon, which was 2 days away. So it was that Harry took Natasha to France, where he would go to speak to the Villa Enclave he knew of there. Fleur and her sister stayed with their father and mother, but normally Villa stayed in the conclave. The conversation started off with some suspicion, until Harry took out his pensive tablet and shared a memory of him and Natasha flying over the island on a carpet and looking down on his land. It was a perfect late afternoon on the island, and all the creatures were peacefully going about their business, and they had just marveled at what they had created. When the first Villa he showed it to ran off with the tablet, he had feared she had decided it was a gift, but half an hour later, they were stampeded by the beautiful creatures wanting to know when they would leave. Harry had told them that he would be making arrangements to meet with them in 3 days, for them to join before he left. They then made their way to the conclave in Bulgaria and had much the same reaction from the creatures there. They next went to go seek out the leprechauns. They had less success with them, as people tended to think of them as mischievous forest creatures. There was one group, though, that had been hunted by normal humans, for their gold, which didn't even exist, who volunteered to join them. It was only a few, but Harry thought they'd fit right in with the other misunderstood creatures. Harry's attempts at offering the goblins a place was met with derision. They thought he was trying to trick them even after providing a memory. Harry had remembered that the Death Eaters had house elves too, and that was how he acquired a small army of them. He explained to them that they could choose to come with him, but he didn't think they really understood. Either way, he had no doubt that, between his many friends and allies, there would be someone that could help them break the conditioning that had been such an integral part of house elf indoctrination for generations. That was it for Harry. He had made his offers and found some successes at least. They spent the next day setting up the ritual and getting ready for their departure. More ingredients, seeds, bulbs, saplings, and some varieties of magical animals which they hadn't found yet. All of them were put in backup plan and placed in stasis chambers. Harry had even set up a new extension off the main chamber, where everyone that decided to come with them could wait while they were in transit. When the day arrived for them to send the younger Harry on, it was to tearful farewells and promises to stay safe. Even though both Harrys knew that he wouldn't remember, when that was done, Harry took the younger Harry away on his own. This would be a personal, private event. They arrived at the ritual site set up in the same location as Harry remembered. "Are you ready?" Harry asked his younger self. "What can I expect?" the younger one asked. "Nothing," Harry said honestly. "You won't know what Tom had done. But you'll remember having killed him in the end and then Tom's ritual finishing and dragging you off." "How long does it take me to make friends?" he asked. "Within 1 hour of arriving you meet an agent who will become one of your first friends." Harry informed him. The younger one took a breath and said, "Okay, I'm ready." Harry took out the potion Bruce had brought along and handed it over. "Drink this." "What is it?" he asked. "It's an aging potion that will bring you up to a certain age. I will then make it permanent." Harry said, "You can make temporary effects permanent. It's one of the last tricks I learned before coming here," Harry said with a smirk. The younger Harry downed the potion then, and since Bruce made it, aged perfectly until he was looking at a man that looked like himself. "Looking good," Harry said. "Now hold still." He focused his power on Harry and then poured power into him before locking his current form as his default. When that was done, he levitated out of a pocket the Elder Wand, which he had recovered for the event, and the Resurrection Stone, and handed both to him. "What are you doing with these?" "Sorry to inform you, but you are the Master of Death. I had no choice in the matter. I remember them melding with my magic shortly after defeating Tom at the Battle of Hogwarts." Harry said, "But then I can't ever die." "No, you can't," Harry agreed. "At least I never have. Fortunately, Natasha is ageless. As long as you keep her alive, she'll live and stay by your side forever, so you don't have to fear losing her." "Your friends are also working on making a Philosopher's Stone. One day soon, you won't need to worry about losing them either." "That's good," the younger Harry decided. "Death met with me and informed me that if I ever want to, he can send me on to the next world. I don't know if he meant the afterlife or another reality, but as long as I have Natasha, I can make anywhere in the world a little slice of heaven if I need to." Harry said. "You met Death?" the younger asked. "What's he like?" "He's kind of a nice guy. Always has tea ready, and he likes to spend time talking about how I am experiencing life. He never had the opportunity, you understand." Harry said. "We always make time to chat with him. He also supplies us with faster magical regeneration so that we can do more magic, which has come in real handy." The younger looked at the trinkets in his hand and, after some thought, stuck his hand into an inner pocket inside the dragonhide armor Harry had given him to wear. In his hand was the invisibility cloak. As he looked at the 3 items assembled in his hands, he nodded and they vanished, turning into sparks of magical potency which then got sucked into Harry's body. "Turns out I had to accept them," the younger said. "I always hoped," Harry said with a sad smile. "Sorry that you didn't really have a choice." I felt your love for Natasha. The younger said, I want that for myself as well. There isn't a lot I wouldn't do for that. I know, Harry said. Just so you know, we're trying to start a family. Our adoptive mother, Frigga, is really excited to see her first grandchild. That's brilliant, the younger said in awe. I can't wait, you'll have to. Harry grinned, then he took a breath. I'm going to wipe your memory now and transfer the experience you'll need. Are you sure you're ready? The younger Harry sat down on the ground and lay back. Go, was all he said. Good luck, Harry said before stupefying him. He focused on him and obliviated everything after the last day when he had fulfilled the prophecy. He leaned over him and opened his eyes with his hands. Then he entered his mind and slipped the packets of memories he had prepared with his occlumency to his younger self, embedding the memories and making them his own. It took a good half-hour to complete the process, but he could tell it had worked. Lastly, he placed his younger self in the epicenter of the ritual site and the copy of Voldemort's body next to him. That done, he started incanting the ritual spell and divested his power for the transfer. It took more power than he had thought, but when he was done there was a flash and the bodies had disappeared. He stood there for another half-hour, just looking at the site and recalled everything that he had sent himself on to do. While there were hardships, there was also a lot of adventure and discovery awaiting him. Harry envied him all the joy and experiences he had yet to discover, but then realized he was just recalling his own past. This wasn't a copy of him, it was him. He had just closed the loop. Everything from here on out was a new adventure. With a smile, he went back to his friends, where they were waiting to hear the good news. Luna had been given instruction on how to use a laptop, so that she could write an article on what she had found on the island. It had taken her a bit of time, but the friendly lady in the ceiling of the bar was always very helpful and would display instructions on the screen for her which she could follow. She'd written a couple of articles by now. She wasn't a Ravenclaw for nothing after all. They had many discussions about strange animals and occurrences, something that had always been a fun pastime for Luna. She had even started making a list of things she wanted to see. Once her editor/father joined them. She hadn't published anything yet, even though the website had been registered for her. Their paper would be going digital, even if Friday said she'd arrange for a couple of physical copies to be made for her. The island was never lonely with all the nymphs and elves, and since Odin and Frigga were there most of the time. She also entertained herself by flying to the Sphinx to trade riddles. The Ravenclaw common room entrance had given her many over the years after all, and the Sphinx seemed to love her for her constant conversation, and Luna had been helping her correct some of the riddles she had come up with, so that she'd be ready for the next tour. It was on one such day, 3 weeks after Harry and his friends had left, that Luna was busy writing up her 5th article on the island's inhabitants. Harry would have no problem if she published it on the internet, since people would assume it was just a tabloid of sorts. She was just finishing her article when a portal opened next to the bar and out stepped Harry. "Hello, Harry Potter," she said. "Hi, Luna." Harry smiled, ready for guests. "I have been missing Daddy for a few years now," Luna said with another smile. Harry just chuckled. Imagine his surprise when they showed up at Hogwarts with Xenophilius Lovegood all packed and ready to leave. "I can imagine," Harry said. "It's been, 20 years for you, hasn't it?" "About," Luna agreed. "But I really wanted to go to your wedding, so I decided to stay." Leave it to Luna to stay behind just to miss 20 years with her father so that she could spend one day at a wedding. It was touching, really. "I also still wanted to find the crumple-horn snorcack. I never did find it," she finished sadly. "Maybe you'll have more luck here," Harry suggested as he produced backup plan and placed it on the deck of the bar. His friends that accompanied him were the first out, followed by the Weasleys led by Fred and George, and then the rest. "Blimey, Harry," George said, looking at all the girls in and around the pool. "Are these all nymphs?" "No, some of them are elves," Harry corrected. "A man could spend a lot of time on a beach like this," Fred said, looking at the beautiful women. "And we do," Natasha added. "Our home is on the island, right over there in fact," she said, pointing off to the side. "Harry, Natasha," Zira's voice exclaimed as she ran at full speed over the bridge so that she could hug him and Natasha. "Hi, Zira," Harry said as he hugged their girlfriend along with Natasha. "Did you miss us?" he asked. "You were gone 3 weeks," she sobbed as she hugged them. "I thought something had happened to you." "Sorry we're a week late," Harry said. "We had a few more passengers than we had planned on, sitting in stasis and waiting to be settled in." "Speaking of which," Natasha said, "Harry really needs to get everyone settled. Stay here with me while Harry takes care of everything." "Okay," Zira said with a smile, even as happy tears still fell from her face. She was still beautiful while she cried, benefit of being a nymph probably. Harry turned around as the last of the human passengers exited backup plan. They were all looking around at the island paradise they were standing on. Hermione had slapped Ron's arm when he couldn't keep his eyes off the bikini-clad women in the swimming pool. "I know, mate," Harry said as Ron apologized. They are beautiful, aren't they? Mate, your wife is standing right there, Ron warned. They are beautiful, Natasha said with a shrug. I'm secure enough that I don't mind him looking. You should have seen his reaction the first time they swam here. They were wearing plain white togas. She smiled in fond remembrance. Then she shook herself from her thoughts. I sorted them out with swimwear shortly thereafter. My son, another call came from off to the side. Were you successful in your quest? Odin asked as he walked through the parting people to embrace Harry. Of course, father, Harry said, hugging him back. Sorry for the delay in returning. I had some guests to situate and needed to add more room. Well done, Harry, Frigga said as she followed shortly after Odin and hugged him tightly. We knew you would be successful. Then she turned to Natasha and gave her a hug too. My dear, thank you for taking such good care of him. She took a step back. Now let me look at you. Frigga looked her up and down and another smile broke her face. Rejoice, for the Queen of New Atlantis is with child. Both Harry and Natasha were shocked at the news. They hadn't realized. There was a cry of joy from all the nymphs and elves, and the next moment there was the sound of a pop as Eldrin, prepared as always, opened a bottle of champagne, followed shortly by sparkling grape juice. Harry was holding his wife, again with tears of pure joy falling from both their faces. Harry, Zira's soft voice said in his ear. I have similar news, she said with a shy smile. You too, Harry asked as he pulled her in and the three of them shared an embrace. I'm going to be a father, he exclaimed happily. Harry then snapped his fingers and a butler appeared. Yes, sir, the bored-looking butler asked. Could you see to the comfort of my friends, guests, and family while I take a reprieve with my ladies? Harry asked. Of course, sir. Shall I show them to the guest house for the duration of their stay? He asked. That will do for now, yes, Harry said before he levitated them across the water and went to the house. Molly Weasley was shocked that Harry would have a butler to begin with, but Steve saw the look and said, the butler is a construct. Harry arranged that the resort has a fully functioning room of requirement and made it so that it could extend to here. Room of requirement? Hermione asked. He made one. He's made plenty of them. Tony added. He'd already asked Friday to inform Pepper that he was back. She'd likely show up any moment, mostly for their usefulness in training. But how does he know how to make one? Hermione persisted. The family that invented the magic were apparently his ancestors. The Peverils, Wanda offered. She had asked since she was trying to become an enchanter, and it seemed the room would be one of his greatest works of enchantment. Hermione's eyes widened as she remembered the reference quickly. She would have one or two questions for Harry when he came back. Fawkes, Dumbledore asked when he looked up and saw his old familiar sighting on the roof of the bar. When did you get here? He asked. The bird seemed to look at him, but Dumbledore wasn't getting anything from him. He's Harry's familiar now, Tony said. He followed him here 6 months after he arrived, cost Harry all the power he had to help him cross over the boundary between worlds. Well, he was tired after helping us save the city from an alien invasion, Steve said, and fixing the whole city afterward, not to mention all the healing he did. Bruce added. Let me get this straight, Hermione said. 6 months after coming to this world, Harry helped to fight off aliens, fixed an entire city, healed a bunch of people, and summoned a phoenix across realities. Is that right? Yes, was the communal response from those who had been there. How did he hide his magic through all that? Hermione asked. He didn't, Tony said. He doesn't use a wand, as you know, so it just looked like powers. We still don't tell people what he does is magic, but ghost. Harry's superhero name is well known for his powers. How do you keep everything secret if he's got hundreds of people working for him? Hermione asked. Thousands, Tony corrected, and he used something you invented actually. He used your sign-up sheet magic to create magical contracts that work on magical and non-magical people. Everyone has to sign one to protect the secrets. That's an abuse of power, Hermione objected. It wasn't his choice. A new voice said Pepper had arrived. She walked up to Tony and hugged and kissed him before turning to Hermione. Hi, I'm Pepper, she said. And Harry had to do it because there was an incident where people infiltrated a worldwide peacekeeping organization named the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division, SHIELD. We needed to make sure something like that couldn't happen again. Steve added. The contracts are useful to protect people's minds as well, since if someone tries to telepathically gain information they don't have permission for, the subject forgets the information temporarily to protect the secrets. He might ask you to do that too when you leave the island. Yet another new voice said as Director Fury showed up. Friday had been told to inform them the moment Harry and the rest were back, and he'd ported through immediately. Where is he anyway? He just got some good news and went to celebrate in private. Bruce said, don't ask, he'll tell you in his own time. Fury suspected he knew but just nodded. Let them share the news on their own. Fair enough, he said. Who are you? A grumpy-looking man with an obvious magical eye asked as he clunked up to Fury. Nicholas Fury, director of Epi Shield. Fury said, suspecting he knew who the man was. Are you Alistair Mad-Eye Moody, Master or Exorer? But yes, he allowed, so his initial plans worked out, Fury asked and got a couple of nods. Good. I'm glad he could prevent the fallout. He turned to Loki. And your plans for that goddamned family of his? Wasn't necessary, Loki said with a smirk. My brother learned a new trick and used that instead. Fury sighed. What did he do this time? Loki was in full evil smirk mode. He made them all magicals. He what? Fury asked. The thing they hate most, Loki said, still remembering their faces when Harry had transplanted Death Eater's magical cores into them. I couldn't be more proud. I can imagine, Fury said. To make people magical though, is that the new skill? Right now it's limited to using pre-existing magical cores, but Harry intends to make his own. He feels that the Death Eater's cores he took are tainted. Tony said, he took away their magic. Fury asked, good riddance. Moody said, the world would have been a better place with them dead, but this way they can suffer for the crimes they committed for their purity. Moody looked at Fury then. I'm assuming you're the leader of Potter's army. I don't lead the army. Fury denied. I do direct the generals of EPI's armed force though. Same thing. Moody said, we need to talk security. He said as he led off Fury to the other side of the bar where they'd not be heard and where Eldrin placed 2 drinks for them. What's this? Moody asked the elf. 50-year-old fire whiskey on the rocks with a slice of lemon, Eldrin said. Just the way I like it, Moody said, before he could ask the man how he knew he was gone. How did he know? He asked Fury. Divination, Fury said. He's a magical elf. Harry rescued their people. When they came here they developed abilities that they had lost after the fall of Ulfheim. Do you trust them? Moody asked. I don't trust many people, but they are loyal to Harry and I trust him. Fury said, picking up his own drink and taking a sip. Good enough for me. Moody said, picking up his own drink. Good stuff. He complimented after a sip. Then he turned back to Fury. Now let's talk about what you're currently doing with magic and how you're keeping the world safe. Then I'll tell you how you're doing it wrong. That conversation didn't heat up further than the initial response. Moody's no-nonsense attitude and vast amounts of experience soon proved the man to Fury, and he could see why Harry trusted him. The Weasleys, in the meanwhile, had stood around uncomfortably, until the butler showed them and the other guests to the guest house and informed them of how the rooms worked. Everyone could have their own rooms, but couples could stay together as well. Hermione and Ron didn't want to take one room with both their parents in residence, though. The relationship was still too new anyway. Dumbledore and McGonagall, who had also joined, thinking that Harry would sooner or later be making new magicals that would require instruction, took their own rooms as well. Everyone was shocked but happily surprised with the views. The magic of each room was also quite interesting. Hermione had thought that the older magicals might not know how light switches worked, but it turned out that they did. They did thank her for the thoughtfulness to offer help, even if it was insulting that she thought they didn't know. Molly Weasley was happily surprised when the maids appeared with clothing appropriate for the weather. The maids of the room had started doing that shortly after the room's creation. She had been warned that the clothing provided only extended as far as the resort extended, which Harry had clearly marked with a low boundary fence which extended till just before the ocean. Bill and Fleur had also joined when Harry had stated they'd need a warding expert. It was true too. Harry tended to make up for subtlety with an overuse of power. Wizards had long ago learned that subtlety could go a long way, without the need for wards that made people sick or influencing the mind directly. Fleur's mother, father and sister were grateful for the opportunity to start over in a new world, since Vila and their offspring were never afforded all the opportunities normal witches were given. They had accepted the invitation, but only after Fleur's father took steps to convert all their assets to gold which he had brought with them. He was not used to being a charity case and would supply for his own family when the opportunity arrived. The twins were just as happy with their accommodations when it provided 2 bedrooms for them. They'd stay together but sleep in separate rooms. Sharing a room could be fun, but privacy would be appreciated, especially if the nymphs were as friendly as they looked. They would be having a conversation about what was allowed on the island first, though. They knew he wasn't going to stand for them causing trouble with his people's happiness. Trouble in general, not so much, as long as it's consensual or in good fun. The last unexpected, mostly human, guest had been Hagrid. The big man had just smiled when Harry shrunk him down so he could fit into the trunk's entrance and said that he'd set him right later. He was considering leaving it as is. He enjoyed not looking down on people or needing special treatment. He was looking forward to joining the people Harry said went out to gather up creatures for the island and meeting the local keeper. Hagrid had heard he had a knack for working with wild animals. He wondered if it was like his own. Hagrid had left Hogwarts with a few tears though. It was his home for a long time, but here with Harry, he'd have the option to learn magic again. Something denied to him for a long time. He'd even brought his umbrella with his old wand still broken inside. When Harry and Natasha came out of the house 2 hours later, having spent the reunion completely naked, they were smiling and sated. Zero was sleeping, having exhausted herself in her eagerness. "Welcome back," came the response from the entire assembled Avengers team and a lot of other people. Heimdall had been spreading the word apparently and opening portals to and from New Asgard. All of their friends, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, the kids from the mansion and many more had gathered to congratulate them on the success of their mission. The Weasleys and other magical newcomers had soon been inundated with questions about their common friend Harry. Harry saw Hagrid talking with Logan and realized he hadn't removed his spell, so he reversed it. Hagrid seemed only slightly upset, but was then happily surprised when the chair he sat on didn't bend or break under his weight. Instead, it grew to accommodate his normal size. "Harry dear," Mrs. Weasley said as she marched over to him and hugged him, "we haven't told anyone, but congratulations," she whispered to him. Then she turned and hugged a surprised Natasha. "Harry is as good as family, so are you," she explained. "You'll fit in marvelously." "Thank you, Mrs. Weasley." Natasha got out. "Call me Molly, dear," she insisted. She looked between Harry and Natasha. "And where is the other mother to be?" Harry said intelligently, "I'm afraid we've tired her out." Natasha said diplomatically, "You mean she's in another sex coma?" Loki said with an evil grin as he appeared nearby. "Loki," Harry objected, "oh, it's quite all right. Arthur and I can be quite passionate ourselves." Molly said with only a bit of a blush and a wink, "You've seen the size of our family. I always knew you'd fit right in, Harry." "Mrs. Weasley," Harry objected again. "You don't think the twins got it from nowhere, did you?" Arthur said with a smile, having followed his wife. "I've just been pranked by Molly Weasley," Harry said in realization. "I like these people, Harry." Loki said, "I'll have fun teaching and learning from the twins." Molly glared at him for a moment but then turned to Natasha. "Let's go speak with Frigga. She and I have been discussing schedules for looking after the children." She didn't ask either. It seemed that they wouldn't have trouble finding babysitters. Harry let Natasha be dragged off by the over-mothering matriarch of the Weasley clan. Arthur just stood by Harry and looked over all the people playing and laughing. "I hear the children were hoping you could make something called a water slide for them to play with," Arthur mentioned without looking at Harry. Harry knew he was just curious as all hell. Harry smirked and clicked his fingers. The water slide was instantly there, and there was a cheer of approval from the children as they ran to the entrance. Logan, quick as ever, was there in seconds to help regulate the lines. Hagrid walked quickly alongside him as he ran to continue their conversation. Harry noted that Logan still kept an eye on the kiddie pool, even as Tonks sat in the water with her baby in her arms as Remus, who had been sitting there and helped keep an eye on the frolicking children, made his way over to Harry. "Harry," Remus said, "you seem to have forgotten your final guest." "Sirius," Harry suddenly remembered he still had him in storage. He instantly stuck his hand in and retrieved his godfather. He lay him gently on the ground and removed the disc that kept him in stasis. "Moment of truth," Harry said before casting an enervate. "Harry," Sirius yelled even as his eyes opened, and he jumped up, ready to keep attacking Lucius Malfoy, who moments before had been attaching them both. His heart was racing and everything seemed to have changed. He saw the Weasleys and many scantily clad women and a bar with drinks and a pool and frolicking children. "I've died," he said in sadness. "I don't deserve to be in heaven. I didn't protect Harry." He noticed Remus next to him and turned to him, about to ask why he was there when he saw who he thought was James. "I'm so sorry, James. I couldn't protect him." "Sirius, you're an idiot," Harry said as his tears came again. He hugged the man and said, "You almost died for me, you mongrel." "You're not dead, Sirius," Remus said. "You're on Harry's island, New Atlantis. He traveled back in time to save you." Sirius stepped back and looked at Harry. "Is that really you, Harry?" "Who else would it be?" Harry asked, trying to get hold of his emotions, even as Natasha pulled at his magic and Harry allowed her to appear by his side. "And I didn't just come back for you, though it was a nice bonus." "Who's the witch?" Sirius asked, looking at the gorgeous woman attached to Harry's side. "Sirius Black, meet my wife, Natasha Romanoff." Harry said, "Natasha Potter on the island, Harry." Natasha reminded him. She turned to Sirius. "Natasha Romanoff is my professional name. It is really good to meet you. Of all the people Harry missed the most, you were always at the top of his list." "Really?" Sirius asked. "You Potter men always have the best luck." He joked even as he turned away to allow a couple of tears to fall. He'd not failed Harry after all. Remus soon had him in a one-armed hug. "Let's get you a drink, shall we? I think Eldrin will have just what you need." "Eldrin?" Sirius asked. "The bartender." Remus said. "He's an elf and one of Harry's people. He's got a real gift for mixing magical cocktails." Sirius nodded dumbly as he spotted all the beautiful women. "Who are all the birds?" he asked. Remus smirked, having known walking him to the bar would do the trick. "Nymphs, elves, and a couple of guests," he replied. "The nymphs and elves are all Harry's subjects." "Subjects?" Sirius asked with growing excitement. "Harry is their king," Remus said, his smile growing brighter. Sirius stopped dead in his tracks. Then he took a deep breath and yelled, "My godson is the king." There were cheers all around as many people agreed, especially the aforementioned subjects and most of the children standing in line for the water slide. The adults in attendance, while having wondered about this man, suddenly realized it was another new arrival and lifted their glasses in salute. "This better not be a dream," Sirius said as he walked across the bridge and looked down at some of the scantily dressed women. "I really hope this isn't a dream." Then he saw the dour face of Severus Snape sipping at a drink while he sat at the bar and chatted with Bruce and Hank, who was in his natural state. "Or a nightmare," he added. "You're not dreaming," Remus said as he led the man to the bar and Eldrin put a drink in front of both of them. "Thanks, Eldrin." "Is mine virgin?" he asked. He didn't want to overindulge. "No," Eldrin said as he put a sobering charm pill on the counter. "Sobering pill, just hold it in your hand or activate the magic and you'll be fine," he said with a smile. "That's handy," Remus thought aloud as he touched the pill and felt it activate and disappear. "No chance you have the cure for lycanthropy back there, do you?" he joked, but the potions masters all heard him. "We can work on that if you want," Bruce offered easily. "What day of the lunar cycle is it today?" Severus asked. "It was full moon yesterday," Hank assured him. "Werewolves change the day before and after the full moon as well," Remus said, suddenly a little worried. Severus turned to Bruce and asked, "May I?" Bruce smirked and handed him the same cloth he had used before. Severus had spoken of the usefulness of the primed processes and wanting one for himself. But he hadn't yet built up the mental fortitude to deal with the overexcitable man-child that was Harry Potter. He would be forever grateful, but he didn't know that he could say it just yet. He took out his wand and conjured a long table, which he unrolled the potioneering kit on. His hands went over the labels and stopped at 2 vials that he recognized one of and he suspected the other on. Then he continued till he found 3 vials that he'd need. Close by each other, he didn't take all 3 out, rather just remembering their position and continuing on. He found the other portions he'd need though, and finally he took out an empty vial from the end and started mixing in specific quantities of specific substances, from a total of 15 different vials. When he was done, he noted the amount in fluid ounces and frowned. "This will be too much for an injection if I tried to make it into one with this." Severus pointed at what he correctly suspected was the alkali-based potion solution. "Oh, that was masterfully done, Master Snape," Hank McCoy complimented, "and you are quite correct. If you tried to do it that way, the solution would be too much to safely inject into his system." But Bruce continued, pulling out a small vial from an inside pocket and handing it to Severus to inspect. "He can just drink this instead." Severus opened the screw head of the vial and smelled the concoction. "This isn't wolfsbane," he noted. "No," Bruce agreed. "That is something new." He pointed at Hank. "Dr. McCoy invented it in an attempt to emulate one of Harry's newest tricks." "Yes, I was hoping it would allow for a person to magically maintain whatever shape they are currently in," Hank said. He activated his trinket and his form changed into that of a normal human being. "Like Polyjuice, except it enforces whatever shape you are currently in. When I drink it while I am in this shape, it forces my body to remain in this shape. Even if I remove Harry's gift that makes me appear human, he allowed himself to change back, but it also dulls my instincts and I dislike feeling so suppressed. My mutation allows for keener reflexes and senses. I imagine that helps in the brewing process," Severus said while he contemplated what was said. "Would it suppress his mental change then? I'm assuming that's what you're hoping for." "That is the idea," Bruce said. "That potion, though, would be capable of being injected if you use the acid-based potion solution. I suggest that Hank does that though. He's an actual medical doctor as well as a scientist." "How long is the effect?" Severus asked as he reached for said solution and Hank handed him a syringe. 20 hours, Hank said with a smile as Snape mixed the solution and placed it in the syringe after confirming the amount of dilution required for this specific potion. "Wait," Remus asked. "Does that mean," he began hopefully, "it's not a cure, but it has the potential to completely manage your condition?" "Yes," Hank said proudly. Hank was almost bowled over as Remus suddenly hugged him. I know I don't know you, but thank you, Remus said. And you all are? Sirius asked as he sipped from a tropical drink that was handed to him. It contained a certain rum Harry was very proud of, and Sirius was thoroughly enjoying it. Pardon my manners, my good man. Hank apologized as Remus stepped away, and Hank reached out a hand to Sirius. My name is Dr. Henry McCoy. My friends call me Hank or Beast, whichever you prefer. Sirius took his hand and shook it. Sirius Black, escaped convict, wrongfully accused, XR disgracefully discharged, current and founding member of the Marauders, godfather to the king. He finished with a proud smile. You forgot degenerate, alcoholic and womanizer. Severus said with a bit of his old sneer but a bit of humor which surprised Sirius, so he ignored it. Nothing could spoil his day. Once introductions were over, he intended to speak with Harry until the sun set and came up again. He'd never had the opportunity before, and he intended not to let one more day pass without finding out everything he could about his godson's adventures. Quite a resume, Bruce said as he also took his hand. Dr. Bruce Banner, biochemist, potions master, head of medical research at Harry's company Potter Innovations, or PI, member of the Avengers. Show him your party trick. Harry's voice joined the conversation. He had finally pulled himself together, and both he and Natasha joined his godfather. Bruce smiled and stepped back, and after closing his eyes and asking Hulk for greeting, started changing. Sirius stepped in front of Harry, when what looked like a troll took the place of the unremarkable-looking Dr. Hulk looked at how Sirius had tried protecting Harry and nodded. It was a good instinct to have in his opinion. Then he turned around and jumped into the pool. Between a couple of nymphs. When he came up again, he had his hands under two of them, and they giggled as they sat on his palms until they were high enough. Then they stood up and jumped into the water. Hulk repeated the action a couple of times. The nymphs really liked the big guy, probably only because he was green though. Hulk is a friend, Harry told Sirius, but don't piss off Bruce. Hulk can get a little defensive. Hulk had heard him, and when Sirius looked at him, Hulk grinned. Then Hulk smash, he said in a low growl. I'll not piss him off then, Sirius said seriously. Hulk then leapt out of the pool and landed where he had stood and transformed back. He really loves getting my clothes wet for some reason, Bruce complained as the wet scraps of his clothes reformed around him. How did you do that? Sirius asked. It's one of the things that makes Bruce unique. Harry said, I never got to tell you, we're in a world with people with powers. We're not in our old world anymore. Sirius asked. Nope, Harry said with a grin. Welcome to a world of superheroes. Let me introduce you around a bit, Harry said as he led Sirius off and took the drink Natasha had gotten for him from Eldrin. She was drinking sparkling grape juice. As they left, Severus asked, what should I do with this now? He held up the completed Wolfsbane potion. Hank was currently cleaning Remus' arm for the injection, but Bruce said, just put it at the end. I'll place it with the rest of the Wolfsbane potions we had made by our students. Why did you allow me to use your ingredients then? Severus asked. Aren't the materials expensive here? Wolfsbane was expensive to make in our world. Harry owns all the crops and his people maintain the only magical animal sanctuary on the planet. Ingredients aren't a problem for us. Bruce shrugged. We also didn't have werewolves before today, so there was no way to test the potion's efficacy, besides testing them for the proper magical signature. Magical signature? Severus asked. We can use technology to test completed potions before use. Once we have a baseline for the correct magical energy which is unique to all potions, we can confirm that the potion was made correctly. Bruce explained. Tony Stark helped Bruce to create the technology. Hank interjected once Remus was injected. He turned back to the werewolf. Now, make sure someone monitors you once the change is supposed to start. I'm sure you'll be fine, but just be careful. I would suggest being around Harry at that time. He can keep you in check if something didn't work correctly. Bruce had a thoughtful look. Maybe it would be best to go to him now. If my calculations are correct, the moon should be rising any time now. But the sun is still out. We should have a couple of hours still. Remus asked. Harry controls the weather and the time of day on the island. I don't know where we are, though I have a general idea of the time zone. The island is a couple of hours ahead of what it looks like. Bruce said, really? Hank asked. He was tired of coming here at the end of the day and it being deep into the night here just to be woken by the sun earlier than he wanted. Bruce chuckled. Leave it to Harry to control the time of day and the weather so that he could relax on a beach and not miss out on all this. Remus chuckled along as he started walking towards Harry and Sirius, where he was introducing Sirius to some of the X-Men. You still didn't answer my question, Severus asked once he had internalized that little tidbit. Why allow me to use the ingredients? He had a suspicion but wanted to confirm it. We wanted to see how quickly you learned and adjusted to new ideas. Bruce said we were hoping to get someone with more experience with potions to work with us. That confirmed Snape's suspicion. So did I pass the interview? He asked with a bit of a smile. With flying colors. Bruce said, though. We'll have to send you on a couple of courses to catch you up on the technology and terms we use in the scientific community. We've completely phased out cauldrons, for example. We don't kill for ingredients either. We have a team of veterinarians that extract anything we might need humanely and then heal the animal afterward. We have different standards at PI, higher standards, Hank added. We've saved millions of people with our breakthroughs and we're not even halfway done yet. Your experience and intelligence is an asset we intend to tap. How could you know of my intelligence? Severus asked. Any experienced potions master would be able to extrapolate the correct use of your potions collection. Harry speaks very highly of you. Bruce said. When Snape frowned at that, he mentioned that you two never got along, but he knew you were very smart and insightful. That you had to ask makes me doubt that last one though. Hank said, I had a suspicion, but I'm still working on believing it. Severus admitted, I've never treated him kindly. He reminds me too much of his father even now. Build a bridge and get over it. Bruce said, he's not arrogant, nor is he one to break rules unnecessarily. When Severus gave him a look, he smirked. He showed his friends a lot of his past. I had to learn a couple of lessons from you myself when I was still starting out, and he showed me memories from your class. I'd also suggest you stay out of people's heads while you're here. Fury's voice broke into the conversation. We have strict policies when it comes to mind readers. And you are, Severus asked the man. He's the man Potter put in charge of his armies and spies. Mad Eye said as he followed after. He will tolerate less from you than I would. He said with a smile, I almost want you to test him. The things I've heard so far makes me want to see the stain he could make of you with one word, magic or not. I'm not the only one he shouldn't piss off. Fury said with an evil grin. Some of the people Harry counts among his friends could destroy planets with little effort or simply stop your heart with a thought. He pointed off to a blonde girl. That little lady could make a force field inside your body and expand it till you pop. I've seen her do it too, not a nice way to go. Enough, Charles Xavier said to Fury as he walked up. I've looked into his mind, he's not a threat. Then he turned to Severus and reached out to shake his hand. Charles Xavier, telepath. Sorry for the invasion of your privacy, but it is standard protocol and I protect my friends and students. Then he looked him in the eye. I also know that you used your skills on innocent children in the past. I had to know that you wouldn't do that here. Xavier is under contract and can't tell us any of your secrets. Fury said, but if you so much as enter one of my people's minds without permission, he can tell us everything. How did you overcome my shields? Severus asked in shock. Not even the Dark Lord could enter my mind. Harry taught me the weaknesses of the skill for in case someone with training in it ever goes to the other side. Xavier explained. I still can't enter his mind, but then I never try, not since the first time. Your mind, however, was distracted with the potions and I slipped in then, but I'll not need to do so again so you can relax. Severus had never felt so violated. The man had been in his head, seen his every thought, and he couldn't even detect it. Doesn't feel good, does it? Xavier asked with a bit of a smile. Are you in there now? Severus asked in shock. No, Xavier said, I'm good at reading facial expressions too. I am a psychologist, you know. He said with another smile. Over by Harry, Remus had explained the current situation and Harry excused himself and summoned 2 brooms. He handed one to Sirius with a warning, be careful. These are much faster than you are used to. Then he mounted his own, followed by Natasha behind him, and then they lifted up. Harry levitated Remus up after them as they suddenly shot skyward and exited the dome of the Fidelius. Suddenly it was dark and they just hovered there. Sirius soon caught up. These things are fantastic, Sirius exclaimed. When I got here I thought there was something strange that made the brooms faster. Then I realized that I was making them faster myself. Harry chuckled. The one you are on, I enchanted here. It's capable of going way faster and has a wind shielding spell built in. If you want to take it for a speed test, remember to come back to me. Why? Sirius asked. Look down, Natasha said. Sirius did and then tilted his head. Where did we come from again? The island has a Fidelius. Harry said, I protected it before I expanded it. It's expanded to that big, Sirius asked. I just thought you were really rich. He has enough money to buy whole countries if he wanted. Natasha bragged as she watched Loki fly up to meet them with Luna behind him. She was in a swimsuit though, and Harry conjured a jacket over her to protect from the weather. Thank you. Luna said. What are we looking for? Loki asked. We were just watching Luna rise. Natasha joked. For Remus? Luna asked without missing a beat. They nodded and Luna had a question. I wonder what would happen if you took Remus to your moon base. You have a base on the moon? Sirius asked incredulously. Just how powerful are you? Very, Harry said with a smirk. Remind me to show you some cool stuff when we're done here. They didn't have to wait long before the moon started rising over the horizon. Remus wasn't very comfortable floating so high up in the air unsupported but understood the reasoning, so he just let it happen. If the potion doesn't work for you, we'll just arrange it so that you can spend the full moon at one of the branches on the other side of the planet for the evening. Natasha said, Harry can open a portal and just drop you there while you rest for the night. Remus would have questioned further, but then he felt something and worried while the werewolf tried to come out to play, but the potion worked as advertised, and after a bit it settled down like it was sulking. It worked, he exclaimed. I could feel the wolf trying to come out, but it couldn't. Ha ha, this is brilliant. I'm happy for you, Remus, Harry said with a big smile at his first decent defense professor. He turned a portal and deposited Remus next to Tonks by the kiddie pool as they looked at the dark portal in shock. We're going to take the brooms for a spin. Then he closed the portal and shot off with Sirius following close behind, flattening himself on the broom for more acceleration. Did Harry just drop you through a portal? Tonks asked. It seems he's capable of much more than us mere mortals, Remus said with a smile. Then he went down on his knees, taking his wife's hand, and said, It's full moon and I didn't change. Harry's people made a way to control it completely. Tonks was shocked, really. A short bit away, Hermione sat in deep conversation with Tony and Jarvis. So you're saying that I did a bunch of research in a prior timeline that I don't remember. And you used that to create a magical computer in my body, Jarvis added. That and much more, yes, Tony agreed. But that doesn't make any sense. She said, I never did the research. Where did it come from? I'd ask your spirit, but I suspect Harry couldn't summon it anymore. Tony shrugged. He summoned my spirit, she asked. All the time, Tony laughed. You insisted on it, wanted to know what I'd been up to since last week and kept on bouncing ideas with me. It was great. You also told us a couple of things, like your experiences with certain experiments and where to fix a misconception of the way runes function. Jarvis added, I still don't understand where the research came from. Hermione complained. It had to have happened so that it could exist, right? But Harry changed the timeline so that it didn't happen, but then he also copied everything I had, but it still had to come from somewhere. I mean, he must have experienced all he remembers at some point. But now that he changed his past, none of that happened. It's a remnant, Tony said. Something passed from iteration to iteration, only kept intact due to one factor, Harry. He does represent, Jarvis started saying. Stop, Tony interrupted urgently. Hermione doesn't have a contract yet, that's something only he can tell her. Goodness, Jarvis said. Thank you for warning me, Tony. I assumed his friends knew. I think he'll tell her in time, but that has to be up to him. Tony said, then he turned back to Hermione. I know you dislike being kept in the dark, but this is something we can't tell you. If we do, we could lose all knowledge of what we're talking about. You really do know me, don't you? Hermione asked. What else did I tell you? She asked. She added more questions to her mental list of things to ask Harry. For that matter, how did you speak to my spirit if I didn't die? Another remnant, I suppose, Jarvis theorized. If you were, respective to his time and memories dead, he'd be able to summon at least the spirit of the once dead Hermione Granger. Since she'd have the same memories, she'd assume he's her Harry and everything would align, right? So that timeline still exists somewhere, Hermione asked. He saved a different timeline and sent our Harry off to go save a different universe. I don't think so, Tony said, but it is possible that this ties back into information we cannot share. I think you're right, Jarvis said, nodding at Tony. Sorry, he said to Hermione again. The next moment a stream of water hit Jarvis in the back of his head, directed at him from Wanda, who was feeling playful. Excuse me please while I go play with my girlfriend. Then he got up and ran after Wanda, who quickly ran in the direction of the guest house, intent on leading him to her bedroom. Shouldn't you be worried that water could damage his circuits or something? Hermione asked as she watched the artificial intelligence quickly gain on the woman in red. He's magical, not electrical, Tony corrected. He takes shower and floats in water, just like a normal human. He even eats, though not so much for the nutrition since his body runs on magic. How does that work? Hermione asked. A couple of tables further on sat Molly Weasley with her husband, talking to Odin and Frigga about their common subject. And then he burned the thing to the ground, killing all the dark elves and saving the universe from being spilled into complete darkness for the rest of time. And he does this sort of thing often, Molly asked with concern. It's what Harry does, they said together. He makes us both very proud, Frigga said as Odin smiled in agreement. He's always been such a sweet boy. Molly said, I don't like hearing that he was forced to kill people, but if it needed to be done, I suppose I won't think badly of him. People die in wars, Molly, Arthur said, always the voice of reason, at least where technology wasn't concerned. We have never been more proud of Harry than the moment he said he'd allow himself to be sent here. We didn't want to let him go through all that, but the older Harry seemed so happy with Natasha and his friends. We couldn't deny him such happiness. He deserves every good thing that comes his way as long as he gives me many grandchildren and heirs for New Atlantis. Frigga said, "Oh, I'm sure he'll succeed in that." Odin chuckled. "He's not the god of sex for nothing. You know," he said, making the forbidden joke. As fate would have it, or by the design of Odin himself, a certain pair of troublemakers were just within hearing distance. They stopped on their way to the water slide where they intended to put on a fireworks display for the other children, free advertising after all, but what they had just heard was just too tantalizing. They rushed over to Odin, where Frigga had realized what he had done and was reprimanding him even as he smiled unrepentantly, but she was interrupted by the twins who looked at Odin with looks of mischief in their eyes. "Excuse me, your majesty, but did we hear you correctly?" one asked. "Did you say Harry was the god of sex?" The other finished. "No, he's been attributed with artifice and enchantment." Odin corrected. "I never said he was the god of sex. Even if everyone on Asgard has heard that rumor, you must have misheard me." The twins smirked when they realized the old man had given them something to play with. "We beg your forgiveness for not listening more carefully." One said, "We must have heard that somewhere else then." The other said, "Perhaps Loki mentioned it." The first asked again, "That does sound like something he would let slip to prank his brother, yes." Odin said, smiling when he realized they had caught on. When they left, he turned to Frigga. "I can just imagine the fun when Harry and Loki team up for a war of tricks with those two." Frigga seemed to understand now too. "They did have a lot of fun with that, didn't they?" "You set my boys up," Molly objected. "If they decide to act on what they learned, it will be their own doing, won't it?" Odin said with a wink. "I just thought that your boys would appreciate the challenge." "Oh, they're up to it," Arthur said with a smile. "I'm more worried for your sons. I dare say it will be entertaining no matter who wins." Odin said. A couple of more tables on, Bill and Fleur were sitting with her parents while her sister was off making friends with the other children her age. "She seems to be making friends fast, doesn't she?" Apolline, her mother, asked. "Not just with the boys either." Monsieur Delacour, her father, agreed. "As I understand it, the children currently here all have gifts and powers that make them unique. But cast out of society for being different," Fleur said. "There could be no better people for her to make friends with." Bill agreed. "They are uniquely qualified to understand being different and not judge her based on her heritage and looks. I can already see her forming a small coterie of female friends that can protect her from the attentions of less controlled members of the male students." Apolline said. "They don't seem to be jealous of the attention the boys are giving her either. It is wonderful to see. I wish I had someone show up to make my own school life easier." Fleur said, just a little jealously. "I don't see how she could have a better chance to enjoy her life. The fact that our school has Harry's protections means that she would have no trouble either if you send her to the institute." Aurora Monroe added as she showed up, having heard part of the conversation. "Professor Xavier is telepathic, so there is no lying or breaking or the rules," she added. "Aurora Monroe, I'm a teacher at the institute." She introduced herself belatedly. "I'm a mutant too, though I suggest you call us enhanced. Harry dislikes the word mutant." "I can imagine." Bill agreed. Charlie in the meanwhile had seen Puppy bathing in its personal hot spring. Logan had noticed him studying the dragon and asked Hagrid to take care of the kids so that he could go talk to the man. "Her name is Puppy," he said rather than introduce himself. Charlie looked up and smiled. "She seems very calm around all these people." He said, "How did you tame her, or did Harry do that?" "She's still a wild animal," Logan countered, "but she loves people. She was rejected from her nest as the runt and I helped bring her in." "She was a runt?" Charlie asked in shock. "She's almost as large as a ridgeback. I read about those," Logan confirmed. "The dragons on Ulfheim don't seem to fall into one category or another. They are all a mix of what the book said. Stronger for it, I reckon. That does explain why she bathes herself." Charlie nodded. "Dragons usually help each other groom when there are enough around." "Nah, I help her groom, so does her wing. She just likes the company. She used to join me in the other hot spring until the elves told me that it was too hot for her. Harry made her this hot spring so that she could still have a place to bathe and lounge." Logan said, "You groom her?" Charlie asked. "She's my familiar." Logan chuckled at his expression. "You're magical." Charlie asked, "I've never heard of someone having a dragon for a familiar." "Nah, I'm an enhanced," Logan said, popping his claws out and back in. "No magic, but Frigga helped her bond to me when she realized Puppy needed it. She'd been following me around since I saved her. I didn't know she was trying till Frigga noticed." "Frigga Harry's adopted mother?" Charlie asked. "He may be adopted, but they are family in all but blood," Logan said. "Frigga is the goddess of love and marriage. Her domains allow her to see and help bonds." "How many dragons are on the island right now?" Charlie asked. "Only 5 others," Logan said, then he pointed up. "There they go now, patrolling." Charlie looked up and saw a wing of dragons all flying in formation and looking for anything on the island that shouldn't be happening. Puppy decided it was her duty. She helped raise those 5 when they lost their mother. They decided to take on her duties when she is busy with other things. Harry said you needed a dragon handler. These dragons seem well taken care of though. Charlie said he was wondering if Harry had lied. We can definitely use your help. Logan said there are other powerful creatures on the island that we try to keep in line, confined in specialized enclosures. The more predatory ones tend to get rowdy at times, and I'd appreciate the help when the time comes. He explained, if you're interested, I could introduce you to the rest of Puppy's wing. Maybe one of them wouldn't mind a familiar bond as well. Charlie looked like all his dreams had suddenly come true. I think we're going to get along just fine, he said, sticking out his hand. Charlie Weasley at your service. Call me Logan. Logan said, good to have you on board. Luna was sitting at the bar with her father, showing him how the laptop worked so that he could read her articles. Harry really has a wonderful island here, and these creatures. Xenophilius said, so many that we've never been able to get close to, and the island isn't even full yet. Luna agreed. Our next scouting mission is scheduled in a couple of days. I'm hoping to find more clues about where the Fae went. So far the only clue I had indicates that they left to another dimension. If we can find out where, we could offer them a place on the island and really turn it into a fairy realm. She enthused. Now, Luna. You know the Fae have always been divided. I can see the summer court coming here, but not the winter court. Xenophilius said, I'm sure Harry can make a plan. Luna said easily. Tony once mentioned starting up another island. Maybe Harry can make them one of their own, and then he'd have a place for creatures that enjoy cold and dark places. He does seem capable. Xenophilius allowed. How are you enjoying life so far? Were you ever able to find the elusive crumple-horned Snorkack? I'm afraid not, Daddy. Luna said sadly. But I have real hope for finding one here. Sif told me she once saw something that fit the description, but she can't remember where. That does fall in well with what we know about the Snorkack. Xenophilius thought out loud. They keep themselves safe by making people forget their location after all. Eldrin just smiled at the two as he placed another drink in front of Luna. He never could find her something that is exactly what she wants. Something about her nature confounded him, but that didn't mean he'd stop trying. He watched her as she took a sip and sighed when he realized it wasn't exactly right either. He'd have to keep on trying. Maybe Lord Potter will invent something one day that will give him the edge he needs to succeed in this quest. He turned around as he sensed another fire whiskey on the rocks with a slice of lemon was in his immediate future. The strange-looking older gentleman must be nearing. He went to work pouring the drink and cutting a fresh slice to add and placed it on the table just as the grumpy old man placed the empty down. The man looked up in surprise at the refill and he smiled. Another victory. Don't smirk at me, Moody warned, but it just made the bartender smirk again and walked away to prepare another drink. That one loves surprising people. He's a good fit on the island. Fury said, he really should learn to be less smug though. Just then another portal opened up and Harry shot through it with Sirius in hot pursuit. Harry and Natasha jumped off his broom at the bar just as Eldrin placed another 2 drinks on the table. Thanks, Eldrin. Harry cheered as he took both drinks and handed one to Natasha, conjuring 5 shots on the table as he went. You cheat, Sirius complained. You never said you'd be taking a portal back. How could I have one? Don't bet against Harry. Natasha scolded. You'd never win, you're telling me. Sirius scoffed as he finally dismounted, only for his broom to be taken by Ron with a hopeful look on his face to Harry. Fine, but be careful and don't go too far. The island is hidden. Harry warned, I don't want to come looking for you. Thanks, Harry. Ron said, if you're interested you can start feeling out the kids. I'll open up the Quidditch pitches in a bit. They already have a couple of teams set up. Maybe they'll let you join a game or two, Harry offered. Now you're speaking my language. Ron enthused as he took off to test the broom. Brother, came Thor's booming voice. You show up only to keep on disappearing. I never even got to greet you. Stop shouting, Harry shouted back but with a smile. I can hear you, you know. Then he turned around and levitated serious shots to him. You lost, so 5 shots of every flavor for you. Are we playing? Thor asked. I'll take him up, he offered, thinking they were playing the normal game of chance to see who could handle the most shots before giving up. Nah, this is punishment for him thinking he could beat me to the bar from the other side of the island. Harry said, but you have your portals. Thor asked, confused. He forgot. Natasha laughed at Sirius' lapse. To be fair, he'd only seen the feat once. Sirius, let me introduce you to my oldest brother Thor, god of thunder and king of the gods. Harry introduced. Thor, this is my godfather, Sirius Black. Notorious scoundrel and lovable mutt. He's your godfather? Thor asked. I remember your stories. He's the one that died in battle defending you, correct? I saved him this time around. Harry shrugged, then he turned to Sirius. Drink up, old man. I've got 10 saying you'll beg me to let you stop before you're done. You're on. Sirius said instantly. He took out his wand and incanted a spell Harry didn't know, then he took the shots and downed them all without stopping once. Then he smirked at Harry. Never try to trick a trickster. He smirked. What did you do? Harry asked. The spell causes temporary loss of taste and smell. Sirius explained as his smile grew. Useful when you have to drink a potion that tastes bad. That's not fair. Harry complained. You were cheating too. Sirius reminded him. Harry stewed but then smiled. Fair enough. Then he cast a finite at Sirius and summoned his wand before conjuring 10 more shots. Enjoy. What's this? Sirius asked. The 10 I owe you. Harry smirked viciously. But Sirius started looking at the shots and then his wand. Chicken old man? Harry asked in challenge. Harry, you can't drink too much. Natasha warned him. You still have new residents to settle. That's right, Harry said, slapping himself on the head. Thank goodness they are in stasis or they'd be pissed. What's this I hear about new residents? Logan asked, walking up to them. This was usually his field. Yeah, I brought a couple of new creatures that needed a new place to stay. Harry said, I'll bring out the intelligent ones for now. Some of the others will need a bit of work first so they can settle. Harry led them from the bar to near the forest line and produced backup plan. Once out he focused and a crate came flying out. Opening the crate he cast a spell and it enlarged till it was very large. Then he countered the time dilation and knocked on the box. You can come out now, we're here. There was the sound of hooves on the inside until half the centaur herd of the forbidden forest exited the box. Fyarns was in the lead. Is this the forest you promised us, Harry Potter? He asked. This is it. Harry agreed. Harry introduced Logan and Fyarns so that he'd know who to speak to. The centaur looked around and then turned, nodding his head at Harry first and then Logan. You are master of the lands. Do you have a place where you'd prefer us settle? He asked. Western part of the forest is currently mostly vacant. Logan said. The creatures are free to go everywhere, but mostly there are just a few nocturnal creatures on that side. They prefer staying in the shadow of the plateau, so anywhere north or south of that will be fine, I suspect. Thank you, Fyarns said. Would you mind if we traverse the plateau while we stargaze? As long as you respect the other creatures and stay out of their enclosures, I don't mind. Logan agreed. Thank you, Master Logan, Fyarns said. I'm certain we'll meet again. With that, the herd of centaurs followed Fyarns into the forest and disappeared. They were the ones opposed to Bane's leadership, so it had worked out well for Harry. Bane had a tribe that followed him without question now, and Harry got a herd of peaceful stargazers. Harry next summoned another box and performed much the same function. This one contained leprechauns. They were less talkative, but their leader spoke to Logan for a bit. Before they too entered the forest, Harry then led the group who had followed out of curiosity to the water's edge, where Harry took out a large tank which was shrunken as well and placed it in the water, where a large group of merfolk exited the tank. After a quick discussion, Harry left them with a warning. Just don't swim out more than a mile. That's where the island's protections end. If any of you do get stuck, let someone know, okay? To the rest of the people except for the Asgardians, it sounded like screeches as the merman leader of the group assented to the rule and said they'd speak to him if they needed anything. For now they'd go looking for a place to settle. They too soon swam off. Harry planned on opening a path for them to swim into the resort and possibly some water features for them to enjoy. But for now, he'd let them settle themselves. Perhaps a nice underwater cave would work for them, he wondered. Harry then turned around and headed back to the resort and walked halfway there before unveiling the last of the intelligent creatures. 2 entire conclaves of Vila were soon in attendance. Ladies, if you'll please wait here while I set you up with a place to stay, he asked. From inside his storage, he produced 2 very familiar-looking glass orbs. Inside them were a couple of strange structures, which looked like solid stone buildings in strange shapes with jutting towers and parapets. They weren't castles per se, but they definitely had the general shapes of them, except with rounded edges and not as imposing, all made of some kind of sandstone. They had no doors that you could see either. Harry took both out and enlarged them just inside the tree line, where there was a large enough clearing for them. The Vila squealed in delight and quickly started kissing his cheek before entering and starting to settle themselves as well. What is it with you and having hot chicks around all the time? Tony asked. Not that I'm complaining, mind you, but Pepper already hits me whenever I look at the nymphs for too long. When you say look for too long, I say stare, Pepper corrected. I just knew they'd like it here. Harry shrugged. They had much the same issue as the enhanced of this world. They were classified as near human, had fewer rights as a result. I couldn't not offer them a place. He defended himself, and they can control their allure. Hank McCoy asked. He had been one of those that followed. The older ones, yes, Harry said. Vila aren't as long-lived as nymphs though, so they have adapted to learn the skill more quickly. You said that they have more of an affinity for air and fire. Hank said, can they fly? If they get upset, they turn into something akin to a harpy. They grow wings out of their shoulders and have been known to throw a fireball of 2. Harry explained, "We'll have to make sure they understand that forest fires won't be tolerated." Logan said firmly, "They have enough control to be able to put the fires out, but I doubt anyone will get them angry on purpose." Harry said easily, "They also understand the rules of the island. They won't cause trouble and their leaders take full responsibility." "I'm wondering how they'll get along with the nymphs," Natasha said. "Oh, I'm sure they'll be fine." Harry shrugged. Then he turned to said leaders who had stayed behind and said, "Ladies, this is Master Logan. He's in charge of all the lands and life on the island. If you have any requirements, speak to him and he'll get word to me if it's something he can't supply. He'll also be introducing you to the other leaders on the island at some point. Thank you, Lord Potter, for giving us this opportunity," one of the women said. Before turning to Logan, "Please let us know if you ever wish to experience the hospitality of a conclave of Vila." She smiled at him in a way that could only be read one way. She could tell this man was virile and powerful. He'd be a good mate for her and her conclave. The other woman wouldn't be ignored though and stepped closer. "Our conclave would be even more welcoming," she said as she bent forward and gave him an eyeful. "Very welcoming." Logan turned to Harry. "Are they offering? That's your deal, Logan." "I have enough women in my life, thank you." Harry laughed, turned and walked away, followed by Natasha, as Hank and a couple of the others stayed behind to introduce themselves and to find out a bit more. Harry had no doubt that the Vila would be joining them a bit later, since the party could be clearly heard from their residence. "You don't by chance have a place for us to gain some swimming attire, do you?" the first Vila asked as she clamped onto Logan's one arm. "We would wear our underwear, but we seem to have forgotten to pack those," the other Vila added, clamping onto his other arm. "I'll take you to the room. The servants of the island will sort you out," Logan said, trying to ignore their allure. He was reasonably immune, but they were getting to him. "But I'm going to warn you, I'm already seeing someone. And he's got another person waiting in line already," Hank said with a smile. It wasn't often that one saw the feral Wolverine uncomfortable. "As I understand it, the goddess of death is being very patient." "Goddess of death?" one of them asked. "Harry's sister, Hela," Hank confirmed. "She hails from the Norse pantheon. But violence is forbidden on the island, correct?" the other Vila asked. "That is correct," Hank said. "Then she will be no obstacle," the first Vila said. "As for Master Logan's current lady, she can simply join us," the other said matter-of-factly. Back at the resort, everyone was having a smashing great time. Molly had insisted on access to the bar so that she could start making some snacks, but Harry had refused. Instead, he'd simply constructed a new kitchen building off to the side, with large open windows and a long open counter, so that she could feel like part of everything and be in the kitchen, her domain, at the same time. Molly had loved seeing the smaller children at play, and her main concern was to feed them, since healthy young children eat a lot, in her opinion. Ron was still one of her youngest, and he ate like there was no tomorrow. Harry had therefore placed the kitchen area near the kiddie pool. It was a temporary construct, but if it turned out it was something that they liked, he could always make it permanent. He did have to warn her about the elven children's dietary restrictions though. She took it in stride and continued asking him for ingredients, implements, tools, plates, and more. When she was ready, she told him to get out of her kitchen and set to work. Harry had intended to buy them a place out on a nice countryside like they used to have, but he suspected that, once the children tasted her cooking, they'd insist she stays around. He knew he would. For that reason, he approached Arthur. "How are you enjoying your first day on New Atlantis?" he asked. "This is a wonderful place, Harry," Arthur said. "I wish we could spend more time here." "But I suspect you're here to discuss where we're going to live," he asked. "That is exactly why I'm here," Harry agreed. "I was going to offer you a place where you'd be more familiar with, but Mrs. Weasley seems to have taken a shine to the children and the liveliness. She does love the bustle of many little feet." Arthur laughed, then he asked, "What are you getting at? Do you want me to set up your house here on the island?" Harry asked plainly. "But this is your home," Arthur countered. "We wouldn't want to impose. If it means I can have Mrs. Weasley's cooking every now and then, I'll not complain," Harry said with a smile of fond remembrance. "I could set you up a bit down the beach though if you prefer," he said. "Then we can fence off a piece of land for you and set you up with a bit of a garden with a couple of chickens and some privacy." "That does sound ideal," Arthur said, nodding his head. "But I'd have to ask Molly. Don't tell her I told you this." "But she wears the pants in our home," he finished in a bit of a whisper. "You know, I kind of suspected that all along," Harry said with a whisper of his own, before they both laughed and Harry stood up to go speak to a couple of the other guests while Arthur went to go speak to his wife. It wasn't 5 minutes later that Molly showed up to give Harry another hug. "Oh, you sweet boy, to offer us a place on your island. We'll have to discuss some things, of course, but I can't wait to settle in and meet all of the locals." She had basically screamed the whole time in her exuberance, before she seemed to remember something. "Oh no, the food." Then she rushed off again to go save what was on the stove. You sure that was a smart idea, mate? George asked from where he was sitting nearby. He and Fred had been working on something suspiciously hidden for the last while. She'll fatten you up so you never want to leave the house. Fred added, like Ron, the finish together. Hey, Ron objected as he returned to the group. After speaking to the younger children about Quidditch, I'm not fat, not yet. George said, won't be long though at the rate you eat. Fred added, what are you two troublemakers up to? Harry asked, it's a surprise. George said, we heard you loved surprises. Fred added with a wicked grin, why do I feel the need to start sleeping with one eye open again? Harry asked apprehensively, paranoia. They said together again, it didn't make him feel better. Harry turned to Natasha. Should we make an announcement before they blow up the island? They wouldn't blow up the island. Natasha said sweetly, turning to look at them with a smile. They know better than to piss me off, don't you? We won't hurt anyone. Fred scoffed, not realizing how dangerous that smile really was. Apparently they hadn't gotten the memo when she took out 2 unspeakables on her own without resistance. Promise. George finished, still working on his part, not really looking up. Don't underestimate my wife, boys. Harry warned. She took out a goddess of magic all on her own. In single combat. Their hands stopped moving before they looked up and saw the serious look on Harry's face and suddenly realized the danger in the smile Natasha was giving them. We promise, they said together but seriously this time. Natasha nodded at them before Harry led her to the pool area, calling Zira, who had finally exited the house, to them and created a platform under them, as he once had to propose to Natasha, and waited till all eyes were on them. Thank you all for coming. Harry started. We love having you all here to commemorate this special day with us. There was a cheer from many, but Harry waited for them to be silent again before continuing. We have much to be grateful for. The threat of Thanos has finally been ended and I was able to save my world's destruction. We have new friends and old friends all come together and the island's population has grown once again, with so many who wish to join in the magic of New Atlantis. But there are some new additions you may not know about yet. It is with great joy and overwhelming gratitude that I pronounce today that the ladies of New Atlantis are pregnant. I'm going to be a father. He finished in a shout of exultation. Those present who hadn't known cheered along with those who had, and suddenly most of the females in attendance descended on the platform to congratulate the mothers-to-be. Harry allowed them to descend, and Harry was soon forgotten by them as the men pulled him aside, and this time Tony was the one to hand out cigars. This reminded Harry of his gift for Odin, and he handed the old man the pipe with the wolf enchantment, with a bag of premium tobacco from his homeworld. It was enchanted to last longer, have color-changing smoke as the smoker wills, and not be as offensive to those nearby. By eliminating the odor outside a certain range from the smoker, Harry was slapped on the back and congratulated over and over again. So you're going to be a father? Sirius asked. He was puffing on his own cigar. Any idea on a godfather yet? Tony also looked interested in his answer. I haven't really given it much thought, but I'm currently thinking Logan would be a good choice. What? Tony and Sirius objected. I'm not joking this time, Tony. Harry said seriously. Logan is a good role model for all the kids that come to the island. That being said, I'm thinking it would be best to discuss it with Natasha and Zira first. We really should decide together. Zira's and my kid will be a nymph too, so it makes sense to choose people from the island. That's fine then. Tony said, I already have a house on the island. I can easily work from here. I'm living here too, Sirius objected. And Harry's kids will obviously be magical. Better to have a godfather that can look after the kids and teach them magic. Like you took, Tony started, only to be silenced by Sirius. If you finish that sentence, we can never be friends. Sirius warned. I literally gave my life to defend my godson. I thought of him as my own and wanted to care for him like a father. It was taken from me and I'll never get that chance again. Don't you dare insinuate that I wouldn't care for his kids. Sirius finished angrily. Enough, Odin's voice broke through. You are both adults, start acting like it. Can't you see your fighting is hurting Harry? He looks up to you both and you're ruining that image for him. He said. Both of them looked at Harry and saw the sad look on his face. Sorry, Harry, Tony said. Yes, sorry, Sirius added. It's pointless anyway since nobody will ever harm Harry. He is a son of Asgard and our people would protect him for all he has done for them. Odin continued. He is also my son, so you may have missed your chance, Sirius, but that doesn't mean your life is over. You could still find a woman and produce an heir for your family, who could grow up with my grandchildren. Sirius looked stricken for a moment before what Odin said sunk in. That's right, I'm not an outlaw anymore. I can still meet the future Lady Black. The only regret I have from your trip to your home reality is that I wasn't there to see you defeat the monster who destroyed it to begin with. I have yet to hear that story actually. Odin said to Harry. Harry was shocked for a moment. It seemed he had too much going on. I forgot. he exclaimed. He took a step back and bowed before Odin. "Father, you once expressed a wish to make an example of the man who destroyed my life so thoroughly. I have saved his punishment for you to decide on." As Harry said it, he removed the last man he had in storage, Voldemort himself. Odin's eyes burned with an unholy fervor for a moment. "You have done well, my son," he grinned evilly. "And as I promised to you all those years ago, his punishment shall be spoken of in legend, and people will still tremble at the suffering of this monster." As Harry stood up and presented the monster to Odin, a portal opened up and Heimdall allowed the royal guard of Asgard to come through. "I have deemed it necessary to send the guard to secure the prisoner, your highness, your majesty," Heimdall said to Odin and Harry respectively and respectfully. "Allow us to keep him where we may keep a thorough watch." "Thanks, Heimdall," Harry said. "Do me a favor." "Anything, my prince," Heimdall said. "Don't remove the disc from his chest." Harry said, "He doesn't have his wand, but he is capable of wandless magic and could potentially kill even those of the Aesir. I have not removed his magic since I wanted Odin to punish him how he sees fit, not half an enemy capable of nothing, but a capable one knowing he cannot win anyway." "Of course, my prince," Heimdall said as the guards carried him away. Then the portal closed. "How many people can make those portals?" Sirius asked after the shock wore off for the ease with which Harry seemed to have captured the most feared Dark Lord of all time. "Only Harry really," Tony said. "I helped him make a rune-based system where his enchantments can use his powers, enabling others to do things only Harry normally can." He finished proudly. "That," Sirius started, "sounds impressive." He finished, "And really difficult. How smart are you?" Tony smirked, but before he could say anything Harry said, "He gets by. He gets by, he says." Tony mocked, "I'm a genius, and you keep on mentioning it." Harry said exasperatedly, "Couldn't you have a little modesty? Why would I do something like that?" Tony asked. "I'm awesome." "You know what?" Sirius asked Tony. "I think we may become friends after all." He grinned. Tony slung an arm around Sirius' shoulder and led him off. "Let's talk about your future wife. Have you heard of social media? I fear for your godfather when Tony Stark starts playing matchmaker." Odin said he'd have more luck with Pepper. Harry agreed. "She did set me up with Natasha after all, and look how well that worked out." "Indeed." Odin said. Harry, Remus, who had been silent through most of that, asked, "Why didn't you just kill Voldemort?" "Didn't you hear?" Harry asked. "Odin is going to decide his punishment. But now he can be a threat here." Remus insisted. "Not while I have this," Harry said, taking out a human skull from his storage. "Charity Burbage's skull is his final Horcrux. While we have this, he won't dare do anything. While we have this, we hold his immortal soul hostage." Another portal opened up and Heimdall just held out a hand. "That belongs in the vault, my prince. Give him the skull, my son. It doesn't belong in this refuge of peace." Odin agreed. Harry relented and handed the skull over, but not before hitting it with a couple of tracking charms. No way was he ever losing track of it. "I'll be setting up a new Fidelius on the vault after this, okay? I have no problem with that." Odin said. "Just what have you been through since coming to this world?" Remus asked. "It's a long story," Harry said.